Part 10. They posted it upside down, and I'm actually not satisfied with it. Author, Lao He. Chapter 91. Shen Tianfu was lucky and received 100 million chips. Although it is still not enough, it is much better than before. He thinks there's still a chance next week. He has enough patience for this matter, and most of half a month or a month is completely within his tolerance. Friday goes by quickly. Saturdays and Sundays mean nothing to Shen Tianfu, he prefers working days. After Monday arrived, he thought things would be the same as before, because the popularity of Tiankai shares had completely dropped. Everything will return to the previous level, and he can eat part of the chips every day. 10 to 20 million is not bad. However, slowly he discovered a problem. The entire Tiankai shares became a pool of stagnant water. 200,000 were sold through collective bidding. This is a company with a market value of more than 10 billion. 200,000 yuan sold through collective bidding? Moreover, he has no funds to continue to enter the market. Even if he buys hundreds of thousands, he can get 5 or 6 positions. I'm afraid it can be closed directly for 10 to 20 million. Where are the people? Where are the retail investors inside? Where are the chips inside? He was completely confused. With this trend, I would be thankful to be able to collect 3 million chips a day, let alone 1 to 20 million a day. It will take years and months to collect enough chips. He still has a long way to go. He has already prepared 30% of the equity. The original plan was to issue an acquisition offer after the sign was raised here. Among the shareholders of Tiankai shares, he can also get 10% support. By then, his equity will be close to 45%, which is enough to replace the board of directors. Because the major shareholders of Tiankai shares only hold 30% of the shares in total. There are still a lot of shares in the hands of retail investors, but those retail investors will never move. In addition, some institutions will not easily move their positions. The chips on the market disappeared overnight. What about the funds that were taken over at a high level yesterday? No running at all today? Soon, he realized the problem. The funds taken over at a high level yesterday were not from retail investors. Is he the major shareholder of Tiankai shares? If this is the case, it means that the other party has discovered his intentions and is collecting chips at all costs. Then your chances of winning are very low. But probably not. Because institutions related to the major shareholder of Tiankai shares previously spent hundreds of millions and cashed out at a high level. If not, then it would be a good thing for him. The equity of the major shareholder of Tiankai Co., Limited has been consumed. Although there has been no increase on my side, it is equivalent to an increase in disguise. Keep taking your chips slowly, just get them low. Let's collect chips first. The funds we took over yesterday, as long as they are not enemies, they are friends. Ho Zhenqiu went out for a trip. Because there is nothing to do next, all the funds are welded into Tiankai shares. Finally, his car stopped at the door of a villa in the suburbs of Zhangzhou. What greeted him was an old man with white hair. Compared with Ho Zhenqiu, the old man in front of him looks old, more like he is 70 or 80 years old. In fact, Ho Zhenqiu knew that his 12th brother grew old overnight and was actually not very old. The two entered the house and sat in the living room. Zhang Yuanqiao handed Ho Zhenqiu a cigarette, and the two started puffing away at it. Zhang Yuanqiao let out a breath of white mist and asked, "Lao Ho, why did you come to see me today?" Ho Zhenqiu smiled and said, "Of course it's about that big shot." "Huh? What can happen to him? Even if something happens, it doesn't have much to do with us, right?" "Haha, I have a feeling that the so-called big boss is actually Li Yuan." "Huh? What do you say?" Of course Zhang Yuanqiao knew who Li Yuan was, he was the little brother of the big boss. It was through Li Yuan that Ho Zhenqiu contacted the big boss. "Ho Zhenqiu, it's very simple, because I found that Li Yuan's short video account is updated every day, and only one account with a capital of about 100,000 is updated. What's this? Does Li Yuan have no money? Yes, didn't you give him 1 million? Yes, I also said that I would help him cash out the house. At that time, I heard that his willingness was not too strong, so I haven't given it yet. I am currently looking for a villa, and when the deal is completed, I will definitely arrange it for him. The topic has gone too far. You said that since he has money and someone behind him to guide him, why does he only use an account worth about 100,000 yuan to make videos? There is obviously no difference between 1 million and 100,000 yuan. His account now is almost 300,000 yuan. If the initial capital was 1 million, it is now 3 million. Zhang Yuanqiao also felt puzzled after hearing this. He said to himself, is it possible that he just wants to challenge the difficulty? To attract fans? He doesn't care about how much money he makes. Haha, is it possible? If you don't care how much money you make, why bother earning fans? Who earns fans not for fame and fortune? It's okay for the sake of fame. Fame and fortune are indistinguishable. Besides, based on my understanding of him, he is far from the level where he doesn't care about millions. Zhang Yuanqiao nodded. There's definitely something wrong. Ho Zhenqiao said with deep meaning at this time, if that Li Yuan is the big man who has been chatting with us, wouldn't some things become clearer at once? How did it work? First of all, our financial strength helped him make money, and then he used his own account to post videos and earn fame. And he most likely has another account. The money we gave him should be there, but it hasn't been announced, but I'm sure I've made a lot of money during this period. Ho Zhenqiao is the only one who knows that Li Yuan is the owner behind the account Voyage by Stocks. So it's easier for him to figure things out. Seeing that Zhang Yuanqiao was still thinking, Ho Zhenqiao continued, actually, I didn't dare to think about it at first, because Li Yuan is too young. But someone reminded me today, and it suddenly enlightened me. Who reminded me? A man named Lao Wang is a fan of Li Yuan. He has set up a group to analyze the review content released by Li Yuan every day. There are now more than 200 people in that group, and the total funds exceed 1 billion. They are also in it. This time, they made about 200 million from Tiankai shares, while we lost more than 100 million. Then why don't we follow what the group says? Zhang Yuanqiao hated the money. Ho Zhenqiao said, if Li Yuan is the big boss, then we are the most profitable funds, why should we follow them? They only made more than 20 points overall, and how did we not make more than 70 points? But this time we lost money. The stock is still in our hands, how can we call it a loss? Okay, then tell me about that man named Lao Wang, how did he remind you? Today in the group, Lao Wang asked Li Yuan to come forward to do a private placement, and they can all invest money. My head suddenly cleared up. Li Yuan's purpose of making videos and earning fans is probably to do private placement. Otherwise, I don't believe there is such a good relationship in the world. With our friendship with Li Yuan, how could we possibly hire a real big boss? The so-called big boss is just a cover-up for Li Yuan. He has the ability. But there is no principle. Zhang Yuanqiao nodded, well, it's almost clear. Is this why you came to me to talk about this? This matter can be explained over the phone. Why should I go all the way? I just feel that after this time, he may not cooperate with us again. After all, he must make more money than we do more. If he has several 100 million, he will do private equity. I'm afraid he will leave us behind. Then what do you want to do? Come out with me. We'll treat Li Yuan to a meal and check his oral hygiene. Why do you want me to do this? Others can't do it. Everyone else is fat or rich and dignified, but you look more pitiful. You can gain sympathy when the time comes. Zhang Yuanqiao. You are so good at talking. Li Yuan was chatting with Gu Dongsheng and the others, because these three guys had just taken a vacation. Regarding the arrangements for the summer vacation, Ma Chenkai plans to work part-time, and he can also take some time to enjoy Sun Hongmei's free work. Chen Qi wants to go home. Gu Dongsheng had nothing to do and wanted to go fishing with Lu Hao. No wages, just lunch boxes. Occasionally, you can also take a ride on a Porsche. Old Chen, then you really don't want to stay with me and learn how to shoot and edit videos. Gu Dongsheng wanted to keep Chen Qi. But this guy only has eyes for Tian Tian. She was his crush in high school. For so many years, he didn't even dare to ask for her contact information. Even more outrageous than Li Yuan before. Although Li Yuan had licked before, he dared to take action and talked when it was time to talk. In the current situation, he even suspected that Tian Tian would get married in the future, and he would be willing to buy milk powder for their children. Let's wait and see. Maybe I'll come back in half a month after I get home. Why? I heard that she seems to be going on a trip in a while. Forget it, just go and die. Li Yuan asked, what's wrong? Old Chen is chasing a girl. Gu Dongsheng immediately said, what a nonsense, he didn't even dare to speak. He is from a college, and he has a boyfriend. He didn't even have his contact information. He started to have a crush in high school, and he still had a crush in college. I'm about to go on a trip with my boyfriend, and he's as obsessed with me as a licking dog, and he can't even smell other people's scent. Then you are really ill. Li Yuan didn't expect that it had already reached this point. Chen Qi usually hides too deeply. Chen Qi said nonchalantly, I can't help it, I just like her. But I know I'm not worthy of her, so I just want to stay quietly. Vomit. Gu Dongsheng was about to vomit. This kind of cruelty is pure and pure. Li Yuan said, Old Chen, if I were you, I would go over and confess my love directly. If it fails, let it go. Your secret love is meaningless. I can't let it go. My confession will definitely fail. It's better to leave it in my thoughts like this. Ah, then you are hopeless. There were 4 guys in the dormitory in my previous life, and they all relied on Gu Dongsheng for financial support. It was really not unreasonable. He is a licker, but Chen Qi is even more outrageous than him. Ma Chenkai is simply interested in women. He doesn't pick. Otherwise, would Sun Hongmei be able to swallow it? It's just that after graduation, there is a high probability that you can't find free ones and start to spend money to look for them. Then, we entered a bottomless pit. Men can't earn as fast as women. So he will be poor. There is really no normal person in the dormitory. Just then, his phone rang. After the call was connected, Ho Zhenqiu's voice came from inside. Little brother, are you near Zhangzhou University? I happened to pass by Zhangzhou University. Isn't it time for dinner soon? I want to treat you to a meal. Ah. Forget about eating, I was just with my classmates. Then let's go together and give us old men a chance to communicate with you young people. Okay, we're near the south gate. After hanging up the phone, Li Yuan said to the 3 people in the dormitory, when someone invites you to dinner later, spend more time chatting with them, so as not to make people feel like you are missing out on a meal. Ah. What about you? I have to pick up Sister Ran first. You guys go with me first. While they were talking, a large car stopped in front of several people. After Ho Zhenqiu got out of the car, although he had not seen Li Yuan, he could recognize him at a glance. The greenness on the faces of the other 3 people has not faded yet, and although Li Yuan is only 19 years old, even though he is sunny and handsome, he does not look like a good person at first glance. Can good people make money in the stock market? Haha, little brother, we finally meet today. He walked towards Li Yuan with a smile. Li Yuan quickly stretched out his hand, shook it with Ho Jianqiu, and said, I have admired your name for a long time. At this time, another old man also walked down. However, compared with the energetic Ho Jianqiu, this old man's condition seems to be far behind. Ho Jianqiu said, let me introduce to you, this is our 12-year-old, Zhang Yuanqiao. Yuanqiao, this is the little brother you have always wanted to see. Li Yuan. Is this Zhang Yuling's grandfather? Looks like he's in his 80s. Hello, Mr. Zhang. Li Yuan took the initiative to shake hands with the old man, and could feel that the skin on the old man's hands had many wrinkles. I don't know what happened to make a person in his 60s look as old as an 80-year-old. Zhang Yuanqiao said with a smile, okay, okay. The way he looked at Li Yuan was completely different from Ho Jianqiu's. Gu Dongsheng and the others were stunned. Driving a big car with a driver, the two old men have a big boss temperament. Just this, and you are so familiar with Li Yuan? It seems like the first time we met? Is the relationship so good? Immediately afterwards, Li Yuan introduced his roommates to the two old men, and finally said that he was going to pick up someone first, and after picking up the person, he would go to the dining place to find them. After all, he couldn't abandon Zhou Ranran. Lu Hao has been shooting outside most of the time recently, except when he comes back to sleep. Sometimes we have to shoot twice a day, because not every scene can use the material. So if he leaves, Zhou Ranran will have to eat at home alone. Gu Dongsheng and the three of them are all learning to act like adults. Just like a high school graduation dinner. From that moment on, I was learning how to be an adult. But most people are actually similar to Handan toddlers. This process is painful, and pain can make people learn faster. Li Yuan has also done many terrible things. Zhou Ranran also did it, and even paid a price that could never be recovered in his lifetime. More or less, at this age, there will be some mental illness. They posted it upside down, and I'm actually not satisfied with it. Author, Lao He. Chapter 92. In the car. After Zhou Ranran heard about this, he asked, you seem to be particularly nice to your roommate. Li Yuan asked in surprise, how is it okay? They caused you to be expelled, and then they kept taking advantage of your car. Now when someone else invites you to dinner, you have to take them with you. Sister Ran, it was Gu Dongsheng who caused me to be expelled. He was the cause. But in the end, Anna Shen and I were both promoters. Gu Dongsheng can only bear 1/3 of the responsibility for this matter. God, 2/3. Li Yuan couldn't say that he owed Gu Dongsheng more than 30,000 yuan in his previous life, right? It's fair to say that others don't say it, and it's fair to say that after all, not everyone is willing to lend money to someone again and again. The starting point of this matter was also to prepare to sacrifice himself, but he didn't expect that Anna Shen didn't want that result at all. He didn't expect Zhang Yuling to have that kind of attitude. So his plan seems silly. In fact, when he enters society, he is the one who fares best and lives the most sober life. Oh, what then? And the other roommates didn't offend me either. I'm talking about that Gu Dongsheng. When he gets the other third, we'll break up with him. Oh. Zhou Ranran did not continue to ask any more questions. Li Yuan has his own judgment. Soon, the car arrived at Jinji. Li Yuan estimated that it would be here, otherwise it would not be in line with his identity. As for what the two old men did before, Li Yuan didn't care and wouldn't ask. It's enough to be a retired old man now. Never become dependent on others, so that when you think about things, you won't take any chances. After they sat down, Li Yuan introduced Zhou Ranran first, and then didn't say much. It was the first time for Gu Dongsheng and the others to see an imposing old man, and they would never come into contact with someone like retired cotters. The two old men didn't talk to them about anything serious, they just talked about study, the past and the present. During the meal, Zhang Yuanqiao insisted on drinking something white, so he took his 3 roommates and started. Then, one of the 3 guys was called honest. If Zhang Yuanqiao drank half a glass, they had to drink one too. It was at this time that Li Yuan discovered a problem. Mutai sales are not good this year. The flying genius is 1007. In 2 years it will be 2800, starting from 3000. It seems that it will be hyped up next year, and the wine sellers will charge a starting price of 2500. It's not about how much money you can make from this, but that Mutai will become a powerful tool for attracting traffic. Stock up now so you don't need help in the future. Now you should be able to buy whatever you want. There won't be a situation where major dealers are out of stock and are sitting in warehouses unable to sell. Before the meal was even half finished, Gu Dongsheng and the 3 guys were feeling a little dizzy. Zhang Yuanqiao, the old god, looked like there was nothing wrong with him, and he even smiled at Li Yuan. They didn't let themselves drink from the beginning to the end, and many things were already made clear. After finishing the meal, Li Yuan sent Zhou Ran back to rest for a while, and Ho Zhenqiu also arranged for the driver to take the 3 drunken guys to a nearby hotel. By the time Li Yuan saw the 2 old men again, it was already 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The 2 old men were drinking tea there. After Li Yuan came in, he sat aside. Ho Zhenqiu asked, "Do you smoke?" "No, I'm still young, you can't harm me." Li Yuan smoked in his previous life. After his rebirth, he did have a little addiction, but he could overcome it casually. Until now, he no longer feels it. Ha ha. Ho Zhenqiu laughed. Then he took out a pamphlet from his body and handed it to Li Yuan. Li Yuan took it and unfolded it, and found that it was a planning diagram. Inside was a clear plan of a villa. Li Yuan looked at it and asked, "Mr. Ho, what does this mean?" Ho Zhenqiu said, "Of course it is for my little brother, but it is still under construction. It will take at least 3 months to reach the top, and the house will not be handed over until February next year. This villa is not cheap. You are really willing to spend a lot of money on it?" "It's not expensive, 23 million. I haven't given you the money yet. I just found someone to settle it." "Aren't you afraid that even if you give it to me, I won't be able to decorate it?" "Haha, if I don't even have this confidence, I can't give it away. The most taboo thing about giving gifts is that they don't suit your appetite." Li Yuan put the drawing on the coffee table next to him and said, "Just tell me what happened this time." "Ho Zhenqiu, what's the point of this?" "I just want to thank you, little brother. Without you, we wouldn't know the boss. And this villa is not far from where I live, only 1 kilometer, so we can be considered neighbors after all." "Yes, of course. What kind of banquet is this little brother holding in private? Why don't you ask us old guys to go to the bar for a drink?" Li Yuan felt something was wrong with these words. He didn't answer in a hurry, and waited for 2 minutes before saying, "If you come, I will definitely invite you to eat out." "What delicious food can I have at home?" Ho Zhenqiu said, "There are many people outside, so it's more quiet to eat at home. And there's always not enough to eat outside, so the chef's skills are basically finalized." "Li Yuan, but there are so many dishes outside. It's hard to come up with 10 dishes at home. But if you want to eat outside, it's easy to get 100 or 300 dishes." "Ho Zhenqiu, there are many rules outside. Old guys like us will be despised for smoking. How can we feel at home?" Li Yuan squinted his eyes and said, "There is no need to clean and wash dishes outside. Ho Zhenqiu, you don't need one at home. If your little brother doesn't have a nanny at home, we can provide one. It's guaranteed to be reliable." "Li Yuan, old man, actually the food outside is sometimes more delicious than at home. The worst one is Wanjiao Tower, the better one is the Chenji I had today." I have never seen any restaurant that can make so many dishes. Such a good taste. Ho Genkuo said, both these two restaurants were not very good at the beginning. They were lucky to pass on the inheritance, and they were also lucky to have great chefs. Both inheritance and chefs are indispensable. Either one is missing. They can only be regarded as tepid, and they have to lose money in the off-season. Most restaurants outside are not very good. The restaurants that have closed down in recent years are no less than the milk tea sold. Li Yuan, to tell you the truth, my hobby is cooking. But if I keep cooking at home, my cooking skills will never improve. If the guests are fixed, my cooking skills will be fixed too. One day the guests stop coming, and my cooking skills can't be sold. If I had the chance, I would definitely be willing to open a restaurant to cook. Who dares to say that my restaurant can't become the next Chenji? Chenji is the most profitable restaurant in Zhangzhou. Even if the unit price is not necessarily higher than those in private restaurants, how many customers can those private restaurants receive in a day? Ho Genkuo couldn't answer. Li Yuan has already said that he is confident. Do you think he is arrogant? As for the time cost? She is still very young, and her coffin is rotten, but she might still be alive and well. Half an hour later, Li Yuan and Ho Genkuo said goodbye. It was already 3:30 in the afternoon when he drove back. He sent Zhou Ranran to the driving school, and he started to post today's video. In the past few days, his number of fans has skyrocketed, increasing from 70,000 to 80,000 to 50,000 to 50,000 to 60,000 a day. In just 3 days, the number of fans has soared to 400,000. Although it is not as popular as Lu Hao's kind of content, with more than 400,000 fans, he has already reached the status of the top brother in finance. This week's popularity is already number 1 in the financial sector. Many people are looking for his contact information. Anyway, as long as you contact him personally, it is definitely Ho Genkuo who leaked it, no need to doubt it. Today Ho Genkuo actually tested whether he wanted to do private equity. It shows that some of his psychology has been figured out by him. As for his identity, he should already know it. But it is impossible for him to do private equity. There are many differences between private equity and public equity. Private equity does not require a public offering, but only connections. For example, Tianfu Capital and Shangyuan Capital. The stronger the connections, the bigger the funds. Once you have strong earning power and become famous among the rich, you will gradually gain more connections. Moreover, private equity funds do not need to hold public positions, so they have a high degree of operational freedom. The most important point is that if the stock market crashes, private equity funds can liquidate their positions without strict restrictions on positions. But public fundraising doesn't work. A public offering requires a public offering, positions must be disclosed, and the net value must be updated daily. The most important point is that the holdings of public funds cannot be less than 65%. Even if the stock market plummets, they must carry it. There are many rules related to public offerings, and you are faced with subscriptions and redemptions every day, which is a huge workload. Once the stock market situation is not good, it falls into a passive position and encounters large-scale redemptions. Cutting off the funds is inevitable and will not be transferred at the will of the fund manager. But as long as the public offering has one advantage, that's enough. There is no need to be responsible for performance, and the harvest is guaranteed despite droughts and floods. Of course, there is not as much profit as private equity. The general management fee for public offerings is 1.8% per year, but it will be limited to less than 1.2% in a few years. Private equity is linked to profits. If you are really good, you can ask for 20% of the profits. If you are just faking it, you may cause the big funder to lose money or even your life. So many really good fund managers have gone into private equity. By default, only those with average abilities engage in public fundraising. For Ho Jianqiu and others, Li Yuan engages in private equity to maximize their interests. Engage in public fundraising? Even if 1 billion is invested, the money earned in the end may be less than 1/10 of that of private equity. There are other funds from the public offering, as well as various force majeure factors, and the final profit must be shared equally with all funds. But Li Yuan already has 400,000 fans. According to this momentum, 1 million fans is not a dream at all. With such a good foundation, why should he engage in private equity? If private equity earns 1 billion, it will only be divided into 1 or 2 billion. If the public fund raises 10 billion of its own funds, the annual management fee will be close to 200 million. Moreover, public offerings can be siphoned unlimitedly. As long as you do well, more and more money will flow in. 10 billion is just the starting point, and hundreds of billions is the entry level. The domestic fund companies with some serious strength basically start with 300 billion in funds under their control. He was so exhausted from private equity that he couldn't even trade more than 20 billion, because he had to pursue the ultimate profit to get the money. What about public offerings? Just pursue profits and protect the brand. There is only 2 words difference, profit and ultimate profit, and the workload between them is at least 5 times greater. When private equity becomes big, the big guys will find ways to give you money. Don't accept it? Offend. Received. Others will never think you earn too much. You have always been coerced by big bosses, and even those big bosses will use any means to keep you by their side. The richer people are, the more greedy they are and the less bottom line they have. This is not just a saying. Public fundraising is much more comfortable, but at best you will lose a lot of money, and some Christians will threaten to kill you. But often those Christians don't even know where to open the door to your house. Moreover, Christians have a high level of tolerance. Other funds lose 30% in a year, but if you only lose 20%, others will think you are awesome, you will still charge management fees, and the people will not redeem much. Are you trying to lose 20% a year in private equity? If you work for nothing for a year, you may have to sign a bunch of gambling agreements. This year's losses will be deducted from next year's dividends. This is all routine operation. Men can't have any problems with their money. Anyway, I will be preparing for a fund company in a while, and the 13th Tabeoe will come or not. Therefore, he became angry and wanted to do something to himself, but he was not afraid. The main purpose of those 2 shells is safety. After today's video was released, the comment section exploded. Basically, there are all kinds of awesome people, all kinds of people asking for help. Li Yuan had to repost the previous irrelevant video and pin it to the top. This means that I only exchange stocks on this platform. I never recommend stocks, charge no fees, or sell courses. I hope that fans can communicate rationally. Any comments or codes that appear in the comment area have nothing to do with me. I do not recommend it to ordinary people. Enter the stock market. One of the main themes is irresponsibility. He even used his trumpet account to lead the way in the comment area, saying that he had misunderstood the Big Brother's meaning before and would no longer post comments related to the Big Brother's videos to avoid misleading netizens. Close your account and leave. Mission accomplished. It's a pity that the account has more than 8,000 fans who follow it, and no one can use their brains for them anymore. Well. Ho Jianqiu saw the video posted by Li Yuan and sighed. Why do you want to take the road of no return through public fundraising? If you do private equity at the current pace, it won't be a problem to earn 20 to 30 billion a year. It will take years and months to collect 20 to 30 billion in management fees from public fundraising. He didn't understand Li Yuan's choice. Zhang Yuanqiao said, "Didn't you hear what they said? I want to be Chen Ji and the most profitable public fundraiser in Zhangzhou. The most profitable company in Zhangzhou is Oceanwide Capital. With a scale of more than 800 billion, Li Yuan can hardly reach that level even if he is exhausted. Besides, trading billions and trading tens of billions or hundreds of billions are two completely different things. Concept. It is very difficult to operate very large funds, and it cannot be done by him alone. If he engages in private equity, we can also find ways to attract funds for him. It is no problem to start with 2 to 3 billion yuan, and public funds for 2 or 3 yuan. What's the use of 1 billion? People with a lot of funds don't look at public offerings at all. Those people in Lao Wang's group have no interest in public offerings at all. Where else can he get money? Count on those poor fans who don't even have a firm offer. Other than making white gloves for people, it's basically impossible for him to develop. Thank you all for your monthly reward support. Today, the 8,000 words have been updated. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. They posted it upside down, and I'm actually not satisfied with it. Author, Lao He. Chapter 93. July 8. Li Yuan and Song Jiajia jointly cut a cake in the Jushan media office. Celebrating Lu Hao's phishing account has exceeded 1 million followers. Lu Hao, the client, was naturally there, including the photographer and the handyman Gu Dongshen, who also came to join in the fun. Song Jiajia was very excited. She didn't expect that it would be so smooth after arriving at the company. She almost didn't have time to do anything, and an account with millions of fans appeared. The company also signed Wen Yuxian, who now has close to 100,000 fans. But Wen Yuxian didn't come today. Before cutting the cake, Song Jiajia took several photos of the cake and posted it on WeChat Moments to show off. And the money for this cake was all taken out of her private pocket. After taking a bite of the cake, Song Jiajia felt the sweetness in her heart and said sincerely, "Junior, I really saw you right this time. Our Jushan media will definitely become popular." Li Yuan smiled and said, "Senior sister is still a good guide. Since you came, the number of fans of the 2 accounts signed by our company has increased steadily." "Really? What did I guide? It seems that I only found a few small internet celebrities, but when I came to you for review, you didn't take any fancy." Li Yuan. "Why are you so honest? Senior sister, luck is also extremely important in a self-media company. Before you came, we worked hard for a long time to gain 300,000 or 400,000 followers. Since you came, we have exceeded 1 million in a short time, which shows that senior sister has great luck, and this is something that cannot be bought with anything. Anyway, it was just a salary of 4,000, and she said she didn't want it. In this world, where can I find a graduate from a key university worth 4,000 yuan? It's not a bad idea to be a handyman." Song Jiajia believed Li Yuan's outrageous words. She believed it. His eyes almost narrowed into crescent moons. "Hey, it seems that the day when I get my salary is not far away." "Well, it's not far." Li Yuan did not stay here longer, but contacted Ho Zhenkuo and obtained the authorization letter from them. From now on, he can exercise the rights of shareholders of Tiankai shares as a representative. For example, participate in the board of directors and provide opinions. But because they don't account for a large proportion, they don't have any real say. It is impossible for the board of directors of Tiankai shares to let him in. On weekdays, this thing is useless. But if another person wants to acquire Tiankai's shares, and the shares of both parties are about the same and more votes are needed, what he has in his hands will become extremely important. Even if you can only take out 5 points, it is enough to be the straw that breaks the camel's back. He hasn't done much trading in the past few days. He only made a few transactions with his account of 300,000 yuan. There are very few big market trends. Basically, you just take advantage of every opportunity to make 3 or 5 points and then run away. Those who copied homework during this period basically lost money. Anyway, he swapped shares frequently and took 1 day for each stock. Gradually, even though the number of fans has increased to 400,000, fewer and fewer people are following suit. With this method, after suffering a loss once or twice, no one dares to continue following. They are all waiting for the next Tiankai shares. Fans who missed out on Tiankai shares can only beat their chests and regret not discovering this treasure account earlier. Li Yuan began to prepare for the examination. With his knowledge base, the verification was simple. The hardest part is the company. Finance-related companies have more requirements. Especially choosing to be a public fund requires a lot of stringent conditions. For example, there must be at least a certain number of people who have been in the industry for many years, and they must also serve as managers, and a complete system must be completed, including investment research department, investment department, and sales department. The registered capital cannot be less than 100 million, and must be paid in full. Therefore, as a boss, he must also obtain a professional qualification certificate, otherwise he will not be able to apply. Shen Tianfu looked at the harvest in recent days and felt dizzy. No matter how he operates, whether he smashes the market or pulls the board, he can't collect enough chips. Tiankai shares is as if it has been wiped out. The chips that are traded back and forth are only a few million, 1 to 20 million. If he spends a few million, he can hit the limit. With a capital of 10 million, you can pull it off. It has an effect, but the effect is almost zero. What about the retail investors inside? Are they all on collective vacation? Today, Tiankai shares were quickly raised to the limit as soon as the market opened. This wasn't his doing. It's useless to raise the daily limit, there are no chips to sell at all. There are only tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands. If you can collect 10 million in 1 day, it will be considered a high price. Shen Tianfu left the trading room and returned to his office. The one who took action today must be the major shareholder of Tiankai Co., Limited. In the past few days, he has been both smashing and pulling the market, which has been exposed. Originally I didn't want to have a showdown, but the later the showdown was, the more prepared the major shareholders of Tiankai shares were. He took out a pen and paper and counted the chips in his hand over and over again. Already 33%. This is not a low number. The shareholders of Tiankai shares may not be able to get even 25%. It does not necessarily mean that more than 51% of the shares can be controlled, and only more than 67% of the shares can achieve absolute control. Tiankai shares is a listed company, and Shen Tianfu does not want to take it privately. He just needs Tiankai shares as a bargaining chip to expand his capital. So as long as he can win an important position, it is enough. He thought over and over again if there were any omissions. Among them, the 10% Tiankai shares held by Zhangzhou municipal government will be a huge uncertainty. However, he had already received the news that the municipal government would not be involved in this kind of thing. So he started making phone calls. At 12 o'clock at noon, Tiankai shares were suspended due to unexpected circumstances. Li Yuan was stunned for a moment when he saw the news, because it was much faster than he thought. It has only been half a month since he first participated in Tiankai shares. Suspension means there is something major going on. At the same time, Li Yuan also received a call from Tiankai shares, asking if he was free to come to the company to attend the board of directors at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. If not, he could also give written authorization. The 13 Taibao must have also been notified. Of course Li Yuan wants to go, otherwise this work will be in vain. But something wasn't right about this. Looking at the market situation of Tiankai shares, Shen Tianfu would not issue the acquisition offer until today at most. Tiankai shares could have delayed it for a few days, but they agreed on the spot and set the time for that day. Could it be that Tiankai shares is confident of defeating Shen Tianfu? This Shen Tianfu is too anxious. Li Yuan pays attention to Tiankai shares every day, and he has also seen the sharp rise and fall in the past few days. Looking at the overall situation now, Shen Tianfu must have been too anxious and made a mistake, which was discovered by Tiankai shares. At this time, Shen Tianfu didn't have enough chips in his hand. Shen Tianfu had a narrow victory in his previous life. It is said that he paid a huge price at the last moment to become the talker of Tiankai shares. But then the market value of Tiankai shares was 30 to 40 billion. No matter how much money Shen Tianfu lost, he would definitely make it back in the end. And now, the situation is definitely more passive than in the previous life. Shen Tianfu might not have the strength to resist from the beginning. Whether these authorizations in my hand can be put to use remains to be seen. What he thought at first was that if Shen Tianfu narrowly won, he could side with the major shareholder of Tiankai Co., Limited and get at least double the profit. If the major shareholder of Tiankai shares narrowly wins, he can stand on Shen Tianfu's side and also gain at least double the profit. Now if Shen Tianfu is directly beaten to the ground, it will be useless which way he stands. Shen Tianfu should still have some strength, so he won't be unable to get back even 5 points in his hand. If it doesn't work, take all 8.3%. He and 13 Taibao hold a total of 8.3% of Tiankai shares. According to the principle of equal shares and equal rights, they also have so many voting rights. However, he was afraid of being reported as a person acting in concert, so he was only prepared to use 4.99% as a bargaining chip. If you are really pushed into a hurry, you have to do it even if it violates the rules. Shen Tianfu is definitely not afraid of breaking the rules a few more times, and he will be blamed when the time comes. He waited until it was almost 3 o'clock before sending Zhou Ran to the driving school. Ms. Zhou, who was promoted to Subject 3, is only a few days away from getting her certificate. As long as you pass Subject 3, you can take Subject 4 the next day. Unlike Subject 2 and Subject 3, you have to wait 10 days before you can register. So by the time Li Yuan drove for more than 10 minutes and arrived at the headquarters of Tiankai Co., Limited, the conference had already begun. After he revealed his identity, he was taken in by the staff. A huge conference room that non-involved persons cannot enter. After Li Yuan came in, everyone stopped talking and watched him find an empty seat to sit down. After he sat down, he said to the people around him, sorry, there is a traffic jam on the road. Please continue. There was a sign in front of him, and the staff also put an ID badge on him when he came in, so no one would suspect anything. Wu Tiankai, chairman of Tiankai shares, and Li Yuan smiled and nodded, and then continued talking. Shen Tianfu, do you think you can hide your little secret tricks from anyone? Show your chips and see how capable you are. Li Yuan. Is this a high-end business war? So neat and tidy. He has never been exposed to any business wars and has only seen some on the internet. For example, the chairman of a listed company went to a competitor's company to eavesdrop on intelligence. The chairman of a large company arranged for someone to deflate the tires of a rival chairman's car. There is also a manager of a shared bicycle department who placed nails on the seats of competitors' shared bicycles. There is also a hacker who invaded the network of a listed company and demanded a ransom or the network would be disconnected. When I finally inquired, it turned out that I had bribed the computer room and asked her to unplug the network cable every half an hour. Shen Tianfu took out a stack of documents and said, I have 33% of the shares here. If anyone here is willing to sell, I can also buy it at a premium of 20% on the spot. Wu Tiankai, how much can you take out? If I remember correctly, you have it's only 9%, right? Shen Tianfu said this as if he was farting, because a casual check would reveal how much Wu Tiankai still had. The column of equity shareholders of the stock clearly states that Wu Tiankai is the second largest shareholder of tradable shares. The first is Zhangzhou Municipal Government. Wu Tiankai smiled and said, "There are not many people who support me, only 29%, but, I just contacted Zhangzhou Municipal Government, and they are willing to authorize their power to me for this vote, so I can only thank Mr. Shen. Trust in our company strongly supports our stock." Now the market value of Tiankai shares has exceeded 15 billion. Shen Tianfu said, "Impossible. Please take out the authorization letter from the municipal government." He had already contacted the municipal government, but they were not willing to get involved in this matter. Wu Tiankai said with a smile, "Just wait a moment, we are on the way. Logically speaking, we can arrive in an hour at most." Shen Tianfu's face became very ugly. "We have just entered the stage of comparing big and small, and we are going to lose. It is impossible to say that he is not in a hurry. If he withdraws now, he will lose at least 1 billion in cash. Months of planning, time cost, and capital cost are beyond calculation. Basically, this battle can completely defeat him." He glanced around and saw more than 30 people on both sides of the long table. There are more than a dozen of them who also have voting rights, and their combined voting rights are no less than 10%, so they are still candidates to win over. Especially Li Yuan, he holds 1.8%, which is the largest shareholding among these dozen people. But that guy is too young. It is most likely that the parents behind him borrowed the name and have no sovereignty. It is not easy to win over him. Everyone, Wu Tiankai has no ability to lead the company at all. I am a capital player, and I know the power of Tiankai shares better than anyone else. If everyone can vote for me, I can guarantee that within 3 years, Tiankai shares will the market value has exceeded 40 billion. If you don't believe it, we can sign a gambling agreement." Shen Tianfu began to win over those shareholders who did not rely on Wu Tiankai. Wu Tiankai couldn't let him win over him at this time, and said, "Don't believe his lies, everyone. He is playing with capital. What he is best at is killing the goose to lay eggs. Our Tiankai Co., Limited is an industrial company. If it falls into the hands of capital, it will only happen quickly collapse. The company's performance is very good, and I can promise high dividends for the next 3 years. As for the market value, it depends on market feedback. Even if it goes against the market and goes up, you won't have the chance to make much profit, right?" Li Yuan agreed very much with what Wu Tiankai said. If the market conditions are not good, even if the stock price is forcibly doubled, how many people can make money? The profits have long been taken away by speculative funds. Not only can't you make money, but you may also have to lose money. It is not easy to increase the stock price, especially when these people jointly hold such a high shareholding ratio. Some people cannot make gains and others lose, right? Shen Tianfu was already red-eyed. "I can guarantee that everyone's profits will increase by at least 50% based on today's stock price. How many years will it take to get so much dividends?" Wu Tiankai continued, "But the municipal government supports me, which means that the municipal government is optimistic about my leadership of the company. With the municipal government taking care of everything, are you still afraid of problems in the company's operations? Which one is better, a one-time deal or a lifetime deal?" This sentence is a sure blow to Shen Tianfu. The 50% premium promised by Shen Tianfu is not in the same order of magnitude as the 3-year high dividends and subsequent steady growth promised by Wu Tiankai. Even if Shen Tianfu promised a 100% premium, it would not be enough. Unless he comes up with cash now. They posted it upside down, and I'm actually not satisfied with it. Author, Lao He. Chapter 94. Li Yuan always felt that something was wrong. Wu Tiankai won too easily. After he said those words, at least half of the shareholders who had not determined their position had already turned to Wu Tiankai. It was even normal for all of them except himself to turn to Wu Tiankai. After all, Wu Tiankai will still be the one who talks about Tiankai shares. There is no need for anyone to offend him at this time. Even if he does not support him, he will at least abstain from voting. He had read the list before coming here, and many shareholders here only held between 0.5% and 0.8%. Adding up these dozen people, it would not be a problem to collect 8 points. There will definitely not be a 100% chance to get it together on site. Retail investors still have it in their hands, and there are still some shareholders who are unwilling to come and vote. For example, on the surface, 13 Taebao was one of the people who gave up. Wu Tiankai was going to win with an absolute advantage. Even if he added all his forces, he wouldn't be able to help Shen Tianfu come back. But if Wu Tiankai is so awesome, why did he fail in his previous life? In his previous life, Shen Tianfu only got 35% minus 37% of the votes at most. How could he narrowly win? Even if the butterfly effect has occurred, it will not be that outrageous. It is a first-hand product, and it is not an end product that has been peeled off at every level after hundreds of rounds of fermentation and transfer. After Wu Tiankai said those words, some of the dozen shareholders began to raise their hands and express their willingness to support Wu Tiankai. After waiting for a few minutes, Wu Tiankai received nearly 6 points of support. Currently in Wu Tiankai's hands, 29% add 10% add 6%. In the hands of Shen Tianfu, 33%. The chips currently to be determined are, add 2% in Li Yuan's hand that has not yet been expressed. Li Yuan directly picked up the pen and paper in front of him and started writing and drawing. He wanted to find some problem in these data. Even if Shen Tianfu loses, he shouldn't lose so completely. At this time, Shen Tianfu had almost fallen into a state of madness. The copy paper in front of him had been crumpled into a ball. Wu Tiankai, who was confident of winning, said with a smile, "Let's end this matter. In any case, we still want to thank Mr. Shen for supporting us. Let's go have afternoon tea with me first. I will arrange a dinner for everyone in the evening. If Shen Tianfu wants to cash out the stocks he currently holds, it will not only take a very long time, but also continue to drive up the stock price and release enough space. This is a good thing for these shareholders. They can even take the opportunity to cut off Shen Tianfu's flesh and prevent Shen Tianfu from leaving for a few years." At this time, Li Yuan drew a circle on 10%. There is definitely something wrong with the municipal authorization. It is very possible that Wu Tiankai has been lying. He didn't get 10% of the municipal authorization at all. If you remove 10%, then all the data will appear reasonable. Wu Tiankai 35%, Shen Tianfu 33%. If Shen Tianfu can persist for a while and the authorization letter from the municipal government has not yet been sent, then there will be 2% who did not vote in the end, and there is a high probability that they will vote for Shen Tianfu. Therefore, Shen Tianfu narrowly won. In Li Yuan's view, this was probably the situation in his previous life, because Shen Tianfu's bargaining chips in his previous life must have been more than what he has now. At this time, Shen Tianfu said, "I don't agree. Before I see the authorization letter from the municipal government, I haven't lost this battle." Shen Tianfu patted the table. Wu Tiankai's face looked obviously ugly, but he still said with a smile, "In that case, let's have afternoon tea while waiting. Mr. Shen, do you want to come with us? You are not allowed to eat in the conference room. I'll wait right here." Shen Tianfu's eyes were sharp. "I understand that I will die even if I die. Why did he call the municipal government yesterday and they said they would not support any party, but today they turned around and supported Wu Tiankai? He is not convinced. If he loses on connections again, he will lose everything. Anyway, it is impossible to turn over in a lifetime." Li Yuan breathed a sigh of relief when he saw this scene. But there is another problem right now. That is, the 2% who have not yet voted are unstable factors. Once they cannot wait for the authorization letter from the municipal government, they will defect to Shen Tianfu. By then, Shen Tianfu will also have 35%, and Wu Tiankai will also have 35%, which is the decimal point. There is a high probability that Shen Tianfu will win. By then, won't your plan be in vain? So, when Wu Tiankai took everyone to have afternoon tea, he also followed. Wu Tiankai waited for him specially. After all, he held 1.8% of the stock and was considered a very large shareholder. Mr. Li is young. I wonder where he can get a higher position. Wu Tiankai asked with a smile. Dr. Wu, you're welcome. Just call me Xiao Li. I'm just playing around outside now, making small fuss. It's far behind Tiankai shares. Wu Tiankai would not believe Li Yuan's words. He held so many stocks worth 2 to 3 billion, so he couldn't be an ordinary person. Even if he is a playboy, his father must be some big shot. However, there are many big bosses with the surname Li. It is not easy to judge whether it is a local tiger or a dragon crossing the river. Brother Li is too humble. Compared with that bastard in my family, your current achievements are already beyond what they will be able to achieve in their lifetime. I wonder what your parents would call you. Ah. My father's name is Li Wanhe, and my mother's name is Zhou Wan. Wu Tiankai. He racked his brains, but he couldn't think of two such rich people in the country. Is it from abroad? Probably. There are many Chinese people with the surname Li in the south. Now that the country is developing so well, it is only natural to send their children to the country for development. Haha, I've admired you for a long time. Li Yuan. His father is doing decoration work at home, and my mother is cooking for him. She has nothing to do with Wu Tiankai at all. What a waste of time. Soon, a group of more than 20 people arrived at the place Wu Tiankai had arranged. Various snacks and drinks were served. Wu Tiankai also thoughtfully prepared cigarette and cigar booths. Wu Tiankai is also very busy. He needs to get the people who just voted for him to sign the authorization form. The secretary has already prepared the documents. Circulate bit by bit. Since we all agree just now, there is no reason to go back on it now, so we basically signed. And Li Yuan just sat with a few people who didn't express their opinions. Well, he did it on purpose. Originally, the secretary had no intention of asking them to sign. After all, Wu Tiankai didn't give any instructions. But Li Yuan didn't want it. Please bring us some authorization letters. Since we are all here to attend the meeting, it is really inappropriate not to express your position. Even if you haven't thought about it yet, filling out a waiver will not cause trouble to Director Wu. When Li Yuan said these words, it was a living moral kidnapping. Several people at the table were stunned. They actually wanted to cash out, but Shen Tianfu was too inexperienced. They have little interest in long-term dividends. If they can cash out at a premium of more than 50%, they will be very happy. So I didn't make a statement today. But after Li Yuan said these words, what would Wu Tiankai think if they didn't express their stance? Damn it, this guy is here to disrupt things, right? When Wu Tiankai heard this, he was immediately overjoyed. Came over directly. If these people abstain, then Shen Tianfu will have no hope of winning. He was actually a little worried before. Those who didn't express their stance were not easy to deal with. But he currently has a huge advantage, so he is too lazy to chew on these bones. Someone help me now? That would be great. He said with a smile, thank you for your hard work. The promise I made today will be on paper after the matter is over. I guarantee that my people will not suffer. One of the women immediately said, Director Wu, I need to make a call. I'm here on behalf of my husband. He didn't give me authorization before leaving. I'll ask for his opinion. Immediately, someone else said, I am just an agent here. I also need to call and ask the boss what he wants. Mr. Wu, please wait a moment. After saying that, he picked up the phone and left his seat. Wu Tiankai smiled on the outside, but was confused in his heart. These guys are so shameless. Isn't it because there is still a sense of luck? Can Shen Tianfu make a comeback? When Shen Tianfu officially acquires it, they can negotiate terms with Shen Tianfu and let Shen Tianfu take away their shares at a premium. Wu Tiankai smiled and pushed the authorization letter in front of a middle-aged man and said, "Boss Hu, we have known each other for a long time. That boss Hu is so embarrassing. I wish I could beat this bastard Li Yuan to death." In the end, he abstained. Moreover, he holds a full 0.8% of the stocks, which is the largest position in this table. Finally, Wu Tiankai looked at Li Yuan. He felt that since Li Yuan proposed this matter, Li Yuan would definitely not refuse. However, when he brought the authorization letter to Li Yuan slapped his head and suddenly said, "I almost forgot, my father asked me to come over to see the world, and he didn't let me make the decision without authorization. Sorry, Director Wu Ha, I'm young, and I just saw all the big guys eager to show off, so I was impulsive." Wu Tiankai. Haha, it doesn't matter. Anyway, the fact that boss Hu abstained from voting is actually enough. For Li Yuan, it was enough. As long as those few people can't come up with 2 points, Shen Tianfu will be the weak side and need the chips in his hand. Live together. There are really a lot of old fried dough sticks here. Those who voted before must have some pie transactions behind them, otherwise they would not have agreed so quickly. Li Yuan was eating snacks and drinking drinks leisurely. The 2 people who called never came back. Perhaps Shen Tianfu had already communicated with them in private. Moreover, Li Yuan did not believe that he was the only one who saw the problems of the 10% municipal government. Maybe Shen Tianfu was also betting on this. After chatting for a while, Wu Tiankai noticed a document bag that Li Yuan carried with him and suddenly asked, "Brother Li, is there some kind of authorization letter in your document bag?" "Ang, it's my own power of attorney, but I haven't signed it yet. I mainly came here to see the world. If I really have a chance, I'll take it. My dad doesn't intend to let me hold it for a long time. Besides, I got one myself. Small companies need money too." Wu Tiankai was about to curse. "Good boy, wait here. You actually have 1.8% of the stocks in your hand, and you just cancelled 0.8% of them, and you show up again? What does Brother Li's company do?" Wu Tiankai was ready to inquire. "It's related to self-media. I signed a few internet celebrities and burned a lot of money. I need millions to buy traffic every month. I don't have much money on hand, so..." Wu Tiankai understood. This guy is actually from Shen Tianfu's side. Fortunately, Shen Tianfu was not in the mood to win over these cash factions and gave himself a chance. With the 1.8% held by Li Yuan, no matter how big the wave is, it can be suppressed. The fault tolerance rate has increased many times. Because it is impossible for Shen Tianfu to collect more chips than him. At present, retail investors still have about 3%. Those retail investors have probably forgotten their positions and will not sell them at all. Then there were some people who didn't come today and gave up the vote directly, which totaled 10%. There were also close to 6.5% who didn't know who they were and hung up after answering the phone. So in theory, only 80% of the voting rights remain. And when he took what Li Yuan had, even if the municipal government didn't participate, he still owned more than half of it, and he was in an absolutely invincible position. "Brother Li, how about I buy your shares at a 10% premium?" Li Yuan quickly shook his head. No, I took the order at the highest point. According to the stock price that was suspended today, I still lost 10 points. If the premium is 10%, I will still have to lose hundreds of thousands in handling fees. What about a 15% premium? Wu Tiankai continued to ask. Li Yuan said, don't forget it, Director Wu. This money belongs to my father. The advice he gave me is that if someone pays a 100% premium, then I can consider it. Anyway, now Director Wu has a winning chance. Let's wait for Shen Tianfu's subsequent promotion, wait for the opportunity to take action, and he can earn 30 or 40 points no matter what. These words, on the one hand, are because Wu Tiankai is stingy, and on the other hand, they also show that his appetite is not that small. 15% premium. What about sending beggars away? Why don't you cut off your own fans and still make 30 points of profit? Do you have to work so hard? Wu Tiankai smiled awkwardly after hearing this and did not continue. The premium is 30 or 40 points, but he is not willing to part with it now. Before Li Yuan showed up, he already had an absolute chance of victory. Although there are certain risks now, there are still great psychological advantages. There is no need to pay such a high price for Li Yuan. Time passed by, and Li Yuan was almost exhausted. Shen Tianfu suddenly came out and asked, Wu Tiankai, an hour has passed. Why haven't the municipal government come over yet? Are you lying to us? You are simply we didn't get authorization from the municipal government. Li Yuan is also waiting for Shen Tianfu to get into trouble. Because he had just tested it out, there must be something wrong with the authorization from the municipal government. Otherwise, Wu Tiankai is crazy. Do you want the premium in your own hands? Not to mention being overjoyed because Boss Hu abstained. Those actions meant that he did not have absolute confidence. If the 10 municipal points are true, then he has more than 45% of the voting rights. Is Shen Tianfu going to take the lead? Even with all the pressure in his hand, Shen Tianfu couldn't beat him. Wu Tiankai was about to explain when his secretary suddenly walked over from outside, followed by someone. Chairman, the people from the municipal government are here. Wu Tiankai said with a smile, then let's go to the conference room together and let Mr. Shen see what the authorization letter looks like. Li Yuan. Could it be that I fell into a trap? Thank you all for your rewards and monthly support. They posted it upside down, and I'm actually not satisfied with it. Author, Lao He. Chapter 95. Based on the situation at hand, Li Yuan seriously doubted that Wu Tiankai and Shen Tianfu were in the same group. A wealthy gentleman's money will be returned to him in full, and the common people's money will be divided equally. He has entered the market with more than 1 billion. If he wants to cut it off, he will not be able to get out safely without losing 5 to 6 billion. Fortunately, Shen Tianfu's expression didn't look much better, and Wu Tiankai didn't look like he was sure of victory. There was a hint of embarrassment hidden beneath the superficial smile. When walking to the conference room, the crowd was also polarized. The two people who made the call earlier looked a bit regretful. Because I offended Wu Tiankai, although it won't cause much loss now, after all, I still have Tiankai shares in my hand. Who knows what will happen in the future? The current market situation is not good, and there is no funds to take over. They have a total of 200-300 million yuan in funds, and it is impossible to escape. After this incident, Wu Tiankai's control over the company will be significantly increased, and investors will have to look at his face. Both those who had previously supported Wu Tiankai and Boss Hu who had chosen to abstain midway breathed a sigh of relief. At least they didn't offend Wu Tiankai. They can still get a big share of the company's profits in the future, and Wu Tiankai will also give them some preferential treatment. Boss Hu and Li Yuan were walking side by side and suddenly asked, is the little brother from Shen Tianfu's side? Why do you need to stab him in the back? Boss Hu knew Shen Tianfu, and Shen Tianfu had contacted him a long time ago and wanted to take away his shares at a 20% premium. But he didn't agree. The interests on the court today are very clear. With Shen Tianfu in hand, he has a bargaining chip, and he can get a considerable premium from Shen Tianfu. The premise is that Shen Tianfu has hope of winning. But Li Yuan's backstab made Shen Tianfu's already slim chance of winning even worse. He could tell that Li Yuan was trying to maximize his own bargaining chips and beat away his competitors. But he didn't consider the actual situation at all. Shen Tianfu was already far behind, but with this incident, he basically lost all hope. Now that the authorization letter is here, even if it only gives 2 or 3 points of authorization, it's not the stock in Li Yuan's hand that can turn the situation around. Li Yuan said with a smile, "I don't belong to anyone. After all, my money must not be arranged by others. Then you should know that since the municipal government has people coming, the support will not be low. The chips in your hand are about to lose their value. This is not something I can decide. What I can decide is to ensure that the energy I put in is proportional to the return." Disaster. Boss Hu took out his business card and said, "My name is Hu Weizong. I am a fishing gear processor. If I have the opportunity, I will treat my little brother to dinner." He doesn't think highly of Li Yuan, it's just his way of communication. After all, people who can spend hundreds of millions, whether they are your own or not, are the connections you need to make. Li Yuan reached for the business card and said, "I just joined the society and I haven't prepared a business card yet. I'll send a message to Boss Hu later." He did the same thing when he accepted Chen Ji's business card last time. Easy to say, easy to say. Hu Weizong is like a fisherman, no matter whether he can catch fish or not, he must cast the net out. You can't expect the fish to jump into your hand on its own. Soon, everyone filed into the conference room. Still the same position as before. Shen Tianfu stared at the municipal staff, he knew him. At this time, it seems that there is revenge for killing his father. He watched the municipal staff take out the authorization letter and hand it to Wu Tiankai. Every stroke Wu Tiankai made on the document was like a sledgehammer hitting Shen Tianfu's heart. It is impossible to say that Li Yuan is not nervous. He is more nervous than Shen Tianfu. Shen Tianfu can break the jar, but he doesn't want to work hard for so long and go back to the past overnight. Therefore, he would not give up after seeing Wu Tiankai sign the authorization letter. The matter would not be over until the matter was completely finalized. Finally, Wu Tiankai signed the document. But there wasn't much joy on his face. The municipal staff put away a document and walked up to Shen Tianfu. He took out another document from his briefcase and said to Shen Tianfu, "Mr. Shen, this is your authorization." As soon as these words came out, the whole audience was shocked. Even Shen Tianfu himself was a little stunned. "What's the meaning?" Shen Tianfu asked. The staff member said, "That's it." In line with the principle of not participating in healthy competition in the market, the municipal government originally did not want to take sides in this matter, but Chairman Wu Tiankai strongly requested it, and we were embarrassed to refuse, so we decided to support it. You two each have a 5% vote mandate. Everyone's eyes were focused on Wu Tiankai. That's not what this guy just said. He said that the municipal government gave him 10% of the voting rights. Don't look at it as only 5% difference, the actual difference is 20%. Because the municipal government each gives 5%, which is equivalent to no contribution. Li Yuan suddenly breathed a sigh of relief when he heard this. I was only half right, but it didn't affect the final result. Shen Tianfu stared at Wu Tiankai and asked, "Wu Tiankai, do you want to give us an explanation?" Wu Tiankai said with a smile, "What's the explanation? At the beginning, I only knew that the municipal government authorized it to me, but I didn't expect that it was also given to you." The most injured person present was Hu Weizong. He almost spit out a mouthful of old blood. Inexplicably, he was deceived into giving up. Now that the situation has reversed, Shen Tian's chances of winning again have greatly increased. Next, the value of neutral chips will be infinitely magnified, and both parties will strive for those 1 or 2 points of support at all costs. Why did you give up 10 minutes ago? Is there such a shameful behavior in the world? He looked at Li Yuan resentfully. I regret giving this guy my business card. Shen Tianfu didn't hesitate and signed the authorization letter immediately. Thank you to the municipal government for supporting me. The anger in his heart disappeared. If you can't win this situation, it only shows that you are incompetent and you can't blame anyone else. Now Wu Tiankai still has a big advantage. Shen Tianfu, 38%. Wu Tiankai, 40%. There are only 3 neutral chips on site, namely 0.5%, 0.7%, and 1.8%. As long as Wu Tiankai strives for more than 0.7%, it will be difficult to fail. Everyone knows it. Wu Tiankai looked at the lady first. She holds 0.7% of the stock. Ms. Yan, I know you want a premium for the stocks you hold. I can give you a 50% premium based on today's stock price. Wu Tiankai felt that it was pointless to win over voting rights and wanted to acquire it directly. Naturally, Shen Tianfu would not sit still and wait for death, and immediately said, I can give you a 70% premium. He must get everything on the court today. If he loses any of them, he can't win. The advantage of Wu Tiankai is that as long as he gets the 0.7% one, he will not lose. Therefore, Wu Tiankai's chance of winning is still above 80%. Wu Tiankai immediately said, I can also give you a 70% premium. As long as his price is the same as Shen Tianfu's, the woman will definitely give him priority. He wanted to get this 0.7% at all costs, using only private funds. 80%. Shen Tianfu spoke. Wu Tiankai followed closely, I follow 80% too. Shen Tianfu gritted his teeth. This time he prepared 2 billion in cash just to deal with emergencies on the field. He believed that Wu Tiankai could never have more cash than he had. I'm paying a 120% premium. He gave it all. Anyway, there are only 3% of the stocks on the market. Even if the premium is more than double, it is equivalent to spending an extra 4 to 5 billion. After all, the value of the stock itself is still there. Such a high premium is a bit difficult for Wu Tiankai. It will cost more than 100 million. Although he is worth more than a billion, the cash he can actually spend is definitely not as good as Shen Tianfu's. But this 0.7% is too important. He could only grit his teeth and say, I'll follow too. Ms. Yan has become the hot favorite, but who has allowed her share to be stuck at the core of the competition? A 0.5% cannot affect the overall situation, and the 1.8% in Li Yuan's hands seems a bit too much, and Wu Tiankai doesn't want to fight for it at all. Without competition, where would the premium come from? This is not the result Li Yuan wants. Ahem, may I say a few words? Li Yuan took the initiative to speak. If you don't talk anymore, Northwest Feng won't be able to drink. Shen Tianfu and Wu Tiankai, who were at war with each other, focused their attention on Li Yuan. Wu Tiankai said, what does Brother Li have to say? If you want a premium, I can give you 40%. What do you think? If Li Yuan accepts this, then declare his victory directly. Although Li Yuan has more funds, the premium is less, and the total cost is not as much as buying Ms. Yan. Shen Tianfu did not speak in a hurry, because it was meaningless to bid for what Li Yuan had. Li Yuan smiled and said, whether it's a premium or not, we'll talk about it later. The main thing is that I forgot to mention one thing before. I'm here this time not just on behalf of myself. I have a friend who has some money in his hand. 1.5% of the company's stock, entrust me this time. Li Yuan didn't finish speaking and glanced around. Are you kidding me? 0.7% is worthy of influencing the situation? You definitely have to do it yourself. He had already divided the authorization letter in his hand into 3 parts. He received 1.8% for 1 share, Zhang Yuanqiao received 1.5% for 1 share, and 13 Taibao contributed 4.99% for 1 share. It's just such a coincidence. Originally, he wanted to put his 1.8% into 13 Taibao's 4.99% in order to get the maximum premium. It doesn't matter if you can't get a premium for others, you still make money overall. I just didn't expect the situation to become so complicated. You must separate yourself in order to maximize your benefits. After he finished speaking, the situation on the court changed again. As Li Yuan took out the authorization letter and handed it to Wu Tiankai and Shen Tian for review, the two of them felt like they had eaten flies. Damn it, you didn't tell me earlier. Now 0.5% and 0.7% are all irrelevant. Because any authorization letter in Li Yuan's hand can turn the situation around. Even if Wu Tiankai eats up the 1.2% outside, the total in Li Yuan's hands is 3.3%, all of which are eaten up by Shen Tianfu, and Shen Tianfu is still the winner. Li Yuan clapped his hands and said, "Okay, I'm done. You two can continue bidding. I'll wait until the end." Li Yuan was not in a hurry. He wanted to get rid of the neutral 1.2% first, so that he could ensure that there would be no accidents. He doesn't care who he supports, he only cares about what results will maximize his interests. And it can ensure that all 8.29% of the stocks in his hand are maximized. His actions were like being at an auction, where a competing item of the same model had already fetched a very high price, but the hammer had not yet fallen. He suddenly stood up and said that I was about to auction a more valuable item of the same model. What do the bidders think? Ms. Yan almost wanted to rush up and hit someone. Just be a human being. Who dares to pay a high premium for themselves now? So she took the initiative and said, "Mr. Shen, I will give you the stock in my hand at the premium you just mentioned." It's not that she doesn't want to give it to Wu Tiankai, but he knows that Wu Tiankai may not have the courage at this time. Relatively speaking, Shen Tianfu is richer. However, Shen Tianfu also feels distressed by this premium. And I'm not sure about the follow-up. If I offer such a high premium now, isn't it looking for death? So he said, "Miss Yan, I'm sorry, we don't have enough funds, and we are ready to compete for the chips in Mr. Li's hand." Ms. Yan. She looked at Wu Tiankai. As a result, Wu Tiankai turned his head away. He is more stingy than Shen Tianfu. Not to mention a 120% premium, even a 20% premium, he has to consider it now. In the end, Ms. Yan looked at Shen Tianfu and asked, "What is the maximum amount Mr. Shen can give?" Shen Tianfu frowned and thought for a while, "We can only give you a 30% premium at most." Ms. Yan said, "Give me 40%. I can just sign the contract now and I'm not in a hurry to get the money." Not being in a hurry to ask for money means supporting Shen Tianfu in finally bidding for the stocks in Li Yuan's hands. Good. Shen Tianfu agreed. No matter what, it would be nice to have more at this time. If Li Yuan splits it into 2 parts and bids for it, he will have a slight advantage. The man said, "Mr. Shen, why don't you take the money from me? I'm not in a hurry to get the money. A 40% premium is already a very good position. If Li Yuan hadn't suddenly appeared, he would have been able to get at least a 60% premium." Shen Tianfu thought for a while and said, "Okay. At least for now, his psychological advantages are similar to Wu Tiankai's. Even if Li Yuan is split, he only needs to grab 1.8% to become the final winner. If they don't split it up, the money in their hands is enough to suppress Wu Tiankai." It was impossible for Wu Tiankai not to panic. Because the 1.2% is of no use to him, and he can only bid for the 3.3% held by Li Yuan. Even if the premium is 60%, the financial pressure on him will be extremely great, not to mention that Shen Tianfu cannot let him close the transaction at such a low premium. What if the premium is 100%? He will spend an extra 4 to 5 billion to go out. He had mortgaged all his stocks before, and he only mortgaged about 1 billion. Now, if we sell all the houses and cars, we can raise up to 1.2 billion yuan. In short, this time, he must bleed profusely. Don't waste funds on chips that can't change the situation. Soon, Shen Tianfu's secretary prepared the contract and both parties signed it. There will definitely be a series of notarization procedures to follow, but I don't have time to do it now. Shen Tianfu looked at Li Yuan and said, Mr. Li, I am willing to pay a 100% premium for the 3.3% stock in your hand. He didn't have any ink marks, so he went straight to his ultimate move. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. They posted it upside down, and I'm actually not satisfied with it. Author, Lao He. Chapter 96. Faced with this kind of pressure bidding, Wu Tiankai had absolutely no choice. He can only follow. If he can't keep up, he won't have the final say in the company from now on. There is even a possibility of being settled by Shen Tianfu. There is no one in high positions who is not afraid of being liquidated. I'll give you a 100% premium. He has never been so luxurious in his life. 3.3% of the shares are worth nearly 500 million. The premium of 100% is another 500 million. It's casually $1 billion transaction. It's almost time for him to make a deal with the underworld when he goes to the grave. Even if the cost of the stock itself is still there, and you can go to the bank as a mortgage, you will still lose a full 500 million. This premium has reached his limit. Shen Tianfu, I can give a premium of 120%. Basically it is equivalent to adding another 100 million. Although you will suffer a lot, as long as you win these stocks, the loss will be minimal in comparison. He has already invested half of Tianfu capital, and this is what he wants. Li Yuan looked at Wu Tiankai. The capital market does not talk about emotions. The winner is the king and the loser is the bandit. If something happens to him in the future, no one will have any mercy on him. Wu Tiankai's lips began to tremble a little. I'll follow too. There is no retreat, no choice. Li Yuan said at this time, well, I'm sorry to bother you. What I want is cash. Please do what you can. On the surface, he is the biggest villain today. All kinds of destructive tricks were used, forcing people to want to kill him. Shen Tianfu said confidently, I will give you a 160% premium. He suddenly improved by another 40 points. Almost breaking through Wu Tiankai's psychological defense. Because this is a price that can bankrupt him. He has to pay a price of 1.3 billion in cash. He only has 1.2 billion in hand and needs to borrow another 100 million. All his stocks were mortgaged. After buying the stocks in Li Yuan's hands, although they were still worth 500 million, the stocks he had pledged before were equal to zero, and he still had to repay the 100 million he owed. There is leverage to leverage funds, and leverage losses are not a small amount of money. So if he buys it at this price, he will get 500 million shares to pledge, or at most 300 million yuan. Brother Li, I only want your voting rights but not the stock. How about I give you 300 million? When Wu Tiankai said this, it meant that he was preparing for the worst. Giving other people's voting rights to you is not such a big benefit to them. Is Li Yuan so generous now? Centrifugation is inevitable. But he must hold on. But Li Yuan said, sorry, I'm here to sell stocks. I'm just a middleman and don't want to participate in any decisions of the company. It is impossible for Li Yuan to just sell voting rights. After all, he also hit 4.99%. If these 3.3% voting rights are sold, what will happen next? When selling stocks, it doesn't matter how much you sell. However, when exercising power, if more than 5% have not been reported, it is illegal. He has become so greedy, yet he is still allowed to exercise power? If Shen Tianfu is just a little short of starting and needs voting rights, he may consider selling. Now that his face is torn, there are greater benefits waiting for him, and even a fool knows how to choose. Wu Tiankai's face turned green. Do you have the nerve to say that you are just a middleman? There is no middleman like you. Shen Tianfu spoke. Wu Tiankai, if you run out of money, make way. Don't waste time, otherwise the bank will be closed and the transaction will not be completed. Wu Tiankai glared at Shen Tianfu and slapped the table. I'm following. Shen Tianfu did not raise the price immediately. Because this position is too high. It's not like the premium in MS Yan's hands just now, because MS Yan doesn't hold many stocks. Even if MS Yan asked for a price premium of 3 times, he might agree to it. After thinking for 2 minutes, he said, the premium is 180%, Wu Tiankai, will you still follow me? Wu Tiankai stood up directly and put his hands on the table. Is there anything I dare not follow? Follow. At this time, Li Yuan also stood up and said, okay, then I will sell 3.3% of my stock to Director Wu. At this moment, Shen Tianfu was confused. Mr. Li, what do you mean? I can offer a higher price. Shen Tianfu admitted that he was a little hesitant just now, but he never thought of giving up. Li Yuan said with a smile, I know Mr. Shen's financial resources, but I think 3% is more suitable for Director Wu. Besides, I am very satisfied with this profit. Shen Tianfu stood up, clenched his hands into fists, and stared at Li Yuan. You're kidding me. This guy wanted to sell to Wu Tiankai from the beginning, but he just used himself as a proxy to raise the price. If Wu Tiankai didn't follow, he might rather sell to Wu Tiankai at a 160% premium than to himself. Anyone who encounters this situation will not feel good. Mr. Shen, don't be angry. Let's talk again after the transaction between me and Director Wu is completed. Li Yuan wants to eat up the biggest premium, so he definitely can't sell to just one person. It would be impossible to spend that much money on anyone. Shen Tianfu couldn't come up with nearly 3 billion in funds, and it was even more impossible for Wu Tiankai. But if the two of them join forces, it will be almost the same. I have nothing to talk to you about. Shen Tianfu sat down, the anger in his heart had reached its peak. Wu Tiankai was also not very happy, even if Li Yuan said he would sell the stock to him. But such a high premium can be said to have drained away all the wealth he had earned over the decades. While Shen Tianfu was still here, he quickly called the company accountant and bank notary. They all have direct trains, and basically everything can be done within half an hour. All the stocks in Li Yuan's account were changed to Wu Tiankai's name. Zhang Yuan Qiao's stock was also changed to Wu Tiankai's name. At the same time, the two people's securities accounts will receive a sum of money. The two of them combined are 1.386 billion. Li Yuan's account is 756 million. After deducting the 112 million in financing funds, Li Yuan still has 644 million. Of course, he theoretically still owed Zhou Ranran 62 million. While going through the process at the finance side, Li Yuan came outside. Anyway, his money has arrived. Now it's up to Wu Tiankai to go through the process with his company's finance. After all, Wu Tiankai doesn't have that much money and has borrowed several hundred million. Shen Tianfu had calmed down for a while. Just now, Ms. Yan told him about Li Yuan's operation during afternoon tea, and then connected everything together. He felt that he had not lost unfairly. After being tricked by Wu Tiankai easily got 6 points of neutral voting rights. Had he called the municipal government and asked, this would not have been the case. Later, he was played by Li Yuan and became his helper, giving him assists for such a long time. Moreover, Li Yuan's skills at afternoon tea were simply superb. The original neutral voting rights are 2%, plus Wu Tiankai himself has a 2% lead, the total is 4%. As long as Wu Tiankai gets the voting rights of those three people, Li Yuan's 3.3% will not change anything. So no one will fight for his stock because the price is too high. Li Yuan looked to be in his 20s. If there wasn't an expert's guidance behind the scenes, then... He smoked half of the cigarette in his hand and saw Li Yuan coming over. He said, "You are so powerful at such a young age, why haven't I heard of someone like you in Zhangzhou?" Li Yuan said, "I am just a middleman, doing things for others." "Is Mr. Shen going to admit defeat?" "Shen Tianfu. Are you finished yet? Here we go again, right? You win, you win. What to pretend? If you lose, you lose. In the business world, there seems to be no shame in losing, right?" he replied angrily. Li Yuan smiled and said, "Mr. Shen misunderstood. What I mean is, don't you want to make a comeback? Wu Tiankai only has 43.3%, and you already have 39.2%. The gap is only 4.1%. Shen Tianfu laughed when he heard this. "Do you know how much a 4.1% difference means? According to the current situation of Tiankai shares, even if Shen Tianfu pulls another 20 boards, he may not be able to collect so many chips. Because of this merger, the board has been charged to death." Li Yuan asked, "Is it big?" This sentence directly made Shen Tianfu laugh. This guy really can't understand the situation. "Forget it, you are the biggest winner today, just say whatever you want." After saying this, Shen Tianfu turned around and left. Li Yuan said from behind, "If I still have 4.99% of the stock in my hand, how much is Mr. Shen willing to pay to buy it?" Shen Tianfu's figure was shaken. But it soon seemed impossible. There aren't that many chips on the market anymore. If someone has collected so many chips, there's no way he wouldn't know about it. However, it would be rude not to answer. He said, "If it is really available, I would be willing to spend 3 billion to buy it." After saying that, he himself laughed. "Shake your head and keep walking forward. So, let's make a deal." He looked back at Li Yuan. Then he found that Li Yuan took out something from the document bag in his hand. He walked up to Shen Tianfu and handed it over. Shen Tianfu's scalp went numb after just one glance. This guy really has it? How the hell is this possible? Who got so many stocks under his nose? Except for the time half a month ago when countless retail investors rushed in and took a bite, there was no other chance. According to his calculations, Wu Tiankai should only have 25% in his hand, but today the other party said that he had 29%, so he originally suspected that the chips left by retail investors were swallowed up by Wu Tiankai. Now, however, another 5-point stock has emerged. He also knew that this was an opportunity for a comeback. He took a deep breath and, without thinking about anything else for the time being, said, "These stocks, based on the current stock price, are worth 785 million. I can pay a 100% premium, which is 1.57 billion to acquire them." Li Yuan shook his head and said, "Mr. Shen just said 3 billion, and now he is discounting so much all of a sudden. 3 billion, a premium of nearly 300%, which is much higher than the premium given by Wu Tiankai before." But neither Li Yuan nor Shen Tianfu thought it would actually reach this level. 3 billion. For Shen Tianfu, even if he controls Tiankai shares and finally succeeds in trading, he will not make any money. It is equivalent to working for Li Yuan for free. 5 billion. Shen Tianfu gave a price that he thought was very high. Li Yuan said, Director Wu just took out nearly 1.4 billion for 3.3% of the stock. Shen Tianfu immediately said, I know, but he can't take it out now. Li Yuan shook his head, 2.3 billion, just follow Mr. Shen's bid just now. Shen Tianfu immediately said, 1.8 billion is my limit. I have prepared a total of 2 billion in cash, and I have to pay the other two amounts. 21 billion, this is also my bottom line. If Mr. Shen is not interested, then I will not let it go. It can be said that Li Yuan completely offended the two of them today, and he will have to guard against the two of them beating him up in the future. It's already like this, of course, it can be as dark as possible. At this price, Shen Tianfu was very entangled, struggling, and even wanted to kill someone. But he will eventually come next. If he didn't take it, he would lose at least 1 billion in the merger and acquisition deal this time. Although Li Yuan took over the stock, he still suffered a short-term loss and even consumed all his cash flow. But as long as you can operate it well in the long term, you can still make a little profit. After giving more than half of it to those investors, Shen Tianfu could still get some of his hard-earned money. At least the value is preserved. Okay. Just 2.1 billion. This is almost equivalent to a premium of 170%, which is slightly better than Wu Tiankai, but because there are more funds, it is not much better. Li Yuan stretched out his hand and said with a smile, Mr. Shen, can we cooperate happily? What a joy. Didn't he and Wu Tiankai agree today only after Li Yuan held a knife to their necks? The two had been fighting for so long, and a young man had taken away all the profits in advance. Wu Tiankai finally finished the process and found that Li Yuan disappeared at some point. He asked, where is Li Yuan? The secretary replied, I just went out. Wu Tiankai was extremely unhappy inside. On the surface, he seemed to have won this time, but in fact it was worse than losing. Lost. At most, he would lose control of the company, still be a member of the board of directors, and still be worth more than 1 billion. What now? He has hundreds of millions in debt and his net worth is gone. If the position of chairman of Tiankai Limited hadn't brought him hundreds of millions in income every year, he would have regretted it to death. At this moment, he connected all the things today and found that Li Yuan had already started planning. He simply didn't treat him as a human being. Even though the deal was concluded and the money was given, there is no need to be a bad person. But being bullied like this made him feel so angry that he might never be able to swallow it for the rest of his life. Hearing that Li Yuan was gone, he was even more furious. This kid runs pretty fast, he said angrily. As a result, at this time, the door of the conference room was pushed open. Li Yuan said with a smile, Director Wu, were you talking about me just now? I didn't run away. I'm still waiting for the dinner arranged by Director Wu. Wu Tiankai's eyes widened. How the hell do you have the nerve to say such things? Grass. This is an important conference room. Who let the idle guy come in? Please get him out. He bit the word please very hard. He thanked Li Yuan for coming back and giving him a reason to vent his anger. If you don't have any stocks, do you still dare to make a fool of yourself? Thank you all for your rewards and monthly support. The 8,000-word update has been completed today. They posted it upside down, and I'm actually not satisfied with it. Author, Lao He. Chapter 97. Li Yuan can actually understand Wu Tiankai. If it were him, he might be even more outrageous than him. However, being strict with others and being lenient with yourself are the most basic double standards for everyone. So, when Wu Tiankai's secretary came over and gave him a hard push, he said with a smile, Director Wu, don't you even give me a chance to have a meal. Wu Tiankai said with a cold face, every money of the company must be spent in useful places. Naturally, people who have nothing to do with the company cannot take advantage of the company, otherwise it will be difficult to settle the accounts. We are a listed company, and we must be right. We must be responsible to our own shareholders, and we must be responsible to our shareholders. Even if there is a penny error, we cannot allow it. Li Yuan said, then there will be no problem if I follow Mr. Shen, right? Shen Tianfu on the side had no expression on his face. Li Yuan is digging a hole for Wu Tiankai. But he had no obligation to remind him. This guy is young and has a bad mind. He doesn't look like a good person. Wu Tiankai, that depends on whether Mr. Shen is willing to take you. You might as well ask. In Wu Tiankai's view, Li Yuan had just cheated Shen Tianfu so hard, could Shen Tianfu look good on him? However, Li Yuan asked Shen Tianfu with a smile, and Shen Tianfu nodded. Then you can sit next to me later. As the major shareholder of Tiankai shares, you still have this power. Wu Tiankai had only one feeling, Shen Tianfu had something wrong with his brain. The shareholders' meeting is not over yet. Shen Tianfu will definitely want a seat on the board of directors to make up for the losses. Then go ahead. He didn't want to look at Li Yuan, turned around and sat back in his seat. When everyone came back, Wu Tiankai said, everyone would like to welcome Mr. Shen to our board of directors. Currently, there are only 2 seats at most. Not all shareholders have board seats. The board of directors directly participates in company decision-making, and small shareholders are not eligible. Shen Tianfu said, don't worry about this now, I want to continue voting at the previous shareholders meeting. Wu Tiankai squinted his eyes, what do you mean? It's very clear now. Shen Tianfu shook his head, I just got another 4.99% of voting rights. He and Li Yuan haven't made a deal yet because there's not enough time. However, Li Yuan has a power of attorney in his hand, and it is enough to authorize him to exercise his voting rights. Wu Tiankai was shocked when he heard this. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Almost all the stocks that can be contacted on the market are here, there is no reason for you to get so many at once. As soon as Wu Tiankai's question came out, Shen Tianfu looked at Li Yuan next to him. Then, Li Yuan leisurely took out a bunch of authorization letters from his document bag. Then he said, Director Wu, didn't I tell you? I am an intermediary, and I happen to still have 4.99% of the shares entrusted. I do not believe. Wu Tiankai ran over directly, took the document in Li Yuan's hand and started to read it. The more I looked, the more desperate I became. They all ran out? How come it is such a coincidence that it is exactly 4.99%? You name a price, I'll take it. Wu Tiankai said directly. However, Li Yuan's words immediately broke the news. Does Mr. Wu still have money? Is there any money left? Not only did he have no money, he even had hundreds of millions in debt. In order to keep his position as chairman, he has spent everything he has. Looking at Li Yuan again, he seemed to see his father killing enemy. Even if his father is still alive. Shen Tianfu said, Wu Tiankai, it's my turn to sit in your seat now. Of the 11 board seats, you can reserve up to 4. You can discuss it yourself. Wu Tiankai held the handle of the chair next to him and said to Shen Tianfu, how much did you spend? 24 billion. Shen Tianfu added the 2 previous transactions. Wu Tiankai laughed. Then he pointed at Shen Tianfu, do you think you won? You are just a clown. 24 billion, just for the position of a broken chairman? If you want it, I'll give it to you. Shen Tianfu responded, it's better than someone spending 1.4 billion and getting nothing. In this matter, both of them are now the biggest losers. As for the winner, you don't need to look to know that it is Li Yuan who dominated the whole process. Even the person involved, Shen Tianfu, couldn't predict the next situation, but Li Yuan could do everything he could. Li Yuan signed a contract with Shen Tianfu and will trade with Shen Tianfu tomorrow. Watching the moment when the dust finally settled, Wu Tiankai had only one thought in his mind. Have you done the most impulsive thing in your life? Instead of spending 1.4 billion to buy the stocks in Li Yuan's hands, he asked the secretary to drive people away. If he doesn't chase people away, will Li Yuan retain some dignity for himself? All we can say is that he was too lucky. But starting from today, I am afraid that the entire business circle will spread the story that Wu Tiankai chased a young man away and was kicked out. After all, it is a story, and it is normal to slightly change it. Otherwise, how would you attract others to spread it? Wu Tiankai will not be kicked out, and he will definitely still have a seat on the board of directors. But from now on, Shen Tianfu will have the final say on all company-related operations. Only those on Shen Tianfu's side can't bear to see some decisions. Will they support Wu Tiankai? Li Yuan left early because Zhou Ranran was about to end today's driving practice. The venue for Subject 3 is more remote, so you have to go there in advance. In the end, we didn't eat the dinner held by Tiankai shares. In the office, Wu Tiankai and Shen Tianfu sat face to face. From the tit-for-tat confrontation at the beginning, now the dust has settled and both sides have calmed down. He is neither yours nor mine. Who is he? Wu Tiankai asked. Shen Tianfu's answer was simple, I don't know. Humph, the news must have spread that you want to acquire Tiankai's shares. Shen Tianfu, you are now reaping the consequences. Shen Tianfu's face was gloomy. Because Wu Tiankai is right. If the news hadn't been leaked, how could this guy Li Yuan suddenly show up, and he was so well prepared, and all his actions were well hidden? He would definitely not leak it himself. It could only be that there was a problem with those partners. They are guys who have worked together for many years, and they dare to betray him. Shen Tianfu, are you willing? Are you willing to be robbed of 2.4 billion? Wu Tiankai continued. What do you mean? Oops. Didn't Li Yuan say that he is an intermediary? There are so many authorization letters. If we check them one by one, we can always find out who is behind them. Good. The two of them have common interests in this matter. As long as we find out who did it, we may be able to fight back. If only I had the ability. Shen Tianfu clenched his fists. Who doesn't have some blood on their hands? That's not tens of millions or hundreds of millions. Together, the two of them amount to more than 3 billion. In the 13 Taibao group, 12-year-old Zhang Yuanqiao said, my account suddenly increased by more than 600 million. Holy shit, is this real or fake? Where did the money come from? It shows that Wu Tiankai bought the stocks in my account, and my positions have been cleared, leaving only the money. Because Zhang Yuanqiao has signed a power of attorney, Li Yuan can directly operate his account through the bank. The group quickly questioned again, no, even if I buy your stock, I won't be given more than 600 million, right? How many positions do you hold in total? Zhang Yuanqiao, I initially held a position of 240 million, but we took over the position at a high position, so the current account is still losing more than 10 million, and the actual position is only more than 22 million, and now it suddenly becomes more than 600 million. As he spoke, he sent a screenshot of his account. Ho Zhenqiu said, did the big boss use our power of attorney to trade? More than 200 million shares sold for 600 million? Is this possible? I calculated it, which is equivalent to a premium of 180%. How can there be such a fool in the world? At boss, is this true? A few minutes later, Li Yuan responded. It's true, it was sold today. Then why haven't our accounts changed? You have to wait until tomorrow to trade, but the premium is not that high. You can just balance the profits by yourself by then. Then, Li Yuan stopped talking. No matter how many people in the group searched for him, he never showed up again. Because, Zhou Ranran seemed to be aware of something wrong with him. After returning to the place where he lived, Zhou Ranran began to question Li Yuan. I've checked. Even if taking Yuding affects the menstrual period, it won't delay it for so long. It's already been 20 days. So, what happened? Probably, she's pregnant. Zhou Ranran looked at Li Yuan's indifferent attitude, rushed directly to him, grabbed his neck and said, "What did you say? Say it again." Li Yuan still had the same indifferent attitude. "Is there anything else to say? I will know after I go to the hospital for a checkup tomorrow. If you want to have a baby or not, if you want to have a baby, I will sign it for you. If you want to have a baby, I will do the same with you. It doesn't matter, I will give you child support when the time comes." Zhou Ranran really wants to blow Li Yuan's head off with one punch. Is this human language? You don't want your own child at all? Since you don't want it, why do you let the child appear in this world? She had no idea what birth control pills looked like, and looking back now, what Li Yuan gave her was nothing like it. Since you don't want a child, why didn't you take safety measures in the first place? Why did you still give me fake medicine? Zhou Ranran continued to question. Li Yuan, real medicine is too expensive. One pill costs dozens of yuan. Then you can't do it yourself. That's uncomfortable. Zhou Ranran sat on the sofa, unable to exert any strength. Li Yuan's excuse is too outrageous. Finally, after taking a few sips of water, she gritted her teeth and said, "Li Yuan, let me tell you, whether I have a child or not, it has nothing to do with you in the future. I don't want a penny of your alimony, and you won't have to ask for it in the future." After saying that, she returned to her room and prepared to pack her things and leave. Li Yuan came to the door and asked, "You don't want to take the driver's license test, right?" "None of your business." "Then do you know which way the hospital door opens?" "It has nothing to do with you. You can't do anything, so where else do you want to go? Go home. Do you think your family will tolerate you if you go home in this state? Don't have a big belly and complain every day." Zhou Ranran's hand movements stopped. She really wanted to keep the child. "After all, I have been pregnant for a long time, and I really can't bear to have an abortion at this time. The most important point is that this guy Li Yuan does not recognize this child, which is even more good news for her. If Li Yuan admitted the child, she would not dare to ask for it." Li Yuan walked in, took out everything in her suitcase and put it in the closet. "If you stay here for a while longer, I will accompany you for a checkup tomorrow. There is also a cooking aunt here, so everything will be better than if you were at home." Zhou Ranran didn't say anything more. No matter where she goes now, it's not as suitable as here. That night, Li Yuan did not eat at home. Let Zhou Ranran calm down, and Gu Dongsheng wants to talk to him about something today. Lu Hao and the photographer were also at the barbecue stall at the south gate of the school. After Li Yuan came over, the three of them had already started eating. After eating most of the food, Lu Hao and the others went back, leaving only Li Yuan and Gu Dongsheng. Gu Dongsheng whispered, "Have you watched Tong Swafi's videos recently?" "What video?" "A short video. Send it to me." Gu Dongsheng. "It's her financial videos. Recently, she started to go completely sideways." Gu Dongsheng took out his mobile phone, found the video, and handed it to Li Yuan to look at. Li Yuan doesn't have time to watch videos on weekdays, so he doesn't know. But judging from the video, Tong Swafi has completely let go. Although there were some fringe elements before, they were wrapped tightly and pretended to be pure. Now it's just a wave. Wear less of what fabrics you wear. It's not interesting, there are still too many clothes. Li Yuan returned the phone to Gu Dongsheng. Gu Dongsheng almost couldn't help but eat the bamboo stick and said, "Are you really done with her completely? Besides, She is good looking and has a good figure. Even if she is not a girlfriend, there is nothing wrong with doing something else, right? Also, you don't know that Feng Dongchen stopped her under the dormitory building and scolded her 2 days ago. She was scolded to the point of being embarrassed. Fortunately, it was a holiday and there were not so many students in the school, otherwise it would have spread throughout the school. She is at the lowest point in her life now. With your ability, you can easily catch her. Anyway, I think, don't waste such a good figure. Li Yuan glanced at it and said, is this what you came to me to talk about? No, there are other things. Just as Gu Dongsheng was about to speak, Tong Suifei and Sun Hongmei appeared not far away. He seemed to have seen Li Yuan and walked slowly towards the side. Li Yuan glanced at Gu Dongsheng. Did this bitch set a trap for himself? Gu Dongsheng was also confused and waved his hands quickly. This really has nothing to do with me, the conscience of heaven and earth. He almost raised his hands and swore. What he said before was based on the idea of using waste. After all, Li Yuan had given Tong Suifei many gifts before, so sleeping with her once was not a loss at all. Who would have thought that we would just meet him here? At this time, Tong Suifei came over. She was very eye-catching in her suspenders. Li Yuan, where are your Ferrari and Porsche? Why didn't I see you driving them out? Can't you afford the rent? Then she deliberately raised her voice and continued, hey, I'm sorry, you don't think I'm being too lenient, right? What was the reason why Tong Suifei was scolded by Feng Dongchen in public? Wasn't it Feng Dongchen who exposed the true face of Li Yuan, the fake second generation? Li Yuan said helplessly, don't be so loud. I know my control is very lenient, but don't you just know this kind of thing in your heart? There is another chapter updated at 12 noon. They posted it upside down, and I'm actually not satisfied with it. Author, Lao He. Chapter 98. Tong Suifei looked at the tables next door and suddenly burst into laughter, confused and at a loss. What nonsense are you talking about? Li Yuan said without raising his head, didn't you say so yourself? My control is too broad. When did I say such a thing, Li Yuan, you? Before Tong Suifei finished speaking, Gu Dongsheng stood up and said, Senior sister, things have come to this point, why do you have to bother with my roommate? There are many good men in the world, so you can find someone else. Tong Suifei was stunned. Do you want to pester Li Yuan yourself? Is Gu Dongsheng blind? Will you be entangled in this kind of garbage? However, when she looked around, everyone's eyes told her that what Gu Dongsheng said was true. The boy at the next table suddenly said, Tong Suifei, if you are good at this, why don't you introduce my brother to you? He is the one next to me. Ha 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 ha. I'll hum your uncle. Li Yuan estimated that this must be Tong Suifei's previous licking, but she didn't lick her hand in the end. Generally speaking, few college students would say this kind of thing in person. Unless, Tong Suifei was unlucky, and one of the few was touched by him. Own. I am a civilized and polite young gentleman, and I never use vulgar language. Lao Gu, you are treating me today. I know your father has paid you for your living expenses. Li Yuan stood up and said something to Gu Dongsheng. Father Gu Dongsheng pays living expenses on the 7th of every month, and he pays them back on the 8th. No problem, no problem. Gu Dongsheng hurriedly paid the money, and then followed Li Yuan away from this place of right and wrong. No matter what Tong Suifei did, she could only endure the toothache when she was so angry. Soon, next to the playground downstairs in the community, Li Yuan waited for Gu Dongsheng for a while. After Gu Dongsheng arrived, Li Yuan asked, tell me, what do you want from me? I'll be busy tomorrow, so I have to go to bed early and get up early. Gu Dongsheng said a little embarrassedly, well, I also want to make a video. Can you recommend a subject? Li Yuan understood. He followed Lu Hao for a few days and watched Lu Hao soar into the sky with his own eyes. His heart was moved. In fact, there is an advantage to playing with Gu Dongsheng, that is, this guy will not be put off by beauty, which is the so-called will not collapse the house. That's not the case with Ma Chenkai. He might just get a CF for cheap, and then his fans will sue him. All efforts will be in vain by then. Many internet celebrities have collapsed, and the media companies behind them will be furious. This line of work is not easy. As you can see, you have to run around every day. Compared with the 996 job, it is definitely not easier. No problem, I can bear it. Even if I don't go to school anymore. Gu Dong went to college just to look for good opportunities. If he can do it in 2 months during the summer vacation, he has no interest in studying. In order to let Li Yuan marry a rich woman, he was willing to sacrifice his studies. It's just that he didn't know what went wrong in the process, and he didn't follow his plan at all. Li Yuan thought for a while, really want to do it? Real. The living expenses are 2,000 yuan per month in the early stage. Can you bear it? Able. Li Yuan said, okay, I will make $1 million contract for you when I have time tomorrow. I will start after I have allocated the manpower for you in a few days. You can practice your camera skills with mouse these 2 days. Gu Dongsheng was confused. What, $1 million contract? Yes, you can spend 1 million a month, and the money will be included in your salary. Taking advantage of now, Li Yuan is definitely willing to grab traffic. Song Jiajia hasn't found a suitable internet celebrity to sign a contract with yet, so she can only do some digging on her own. He had already arranged the script for Gu Dongsheng. Daedong takes you to eat all over the country. It specializes in all kinds of high-end, all kinds of luxury, the kind that ordinary people can't go to in their lifetime. A meal worth 30,000 yuan, a hotel room worth 80,000 yuan a night, a melon worth 10,000 yuan. While the trend of showing off wealth has not yet been suppressed, let's see if we can gather the traffic of tens of millions of fans. If this was measured, it would be even more violent than Lu Hao's subject. There is almost no ceiling, 30 to 40 million fans can touch it. As for those jokers who plagiarize, he has no interest. The fans who only know how to plagiarize other people's jokes are very mixed. With 30 to 40 million fans, they can only play games to attract traffic to others, and they can't even get 2,000 people to start a live broadcast. That kind of account is a junk account, and the operating cost is extremely high. I'm thinking of starting something that doesn't cost much. What if I lose money? There is nothing that costs nothing. Mouse doesn't spend much money because he is really good at fishing, which means he has a strong ability. You can't just show off your student ID card and talk about middle school and high school knowledge, right? Knowledge is indeed valuable, but not online. Born with limitations, I won't be able to open cram schools privately after 2 years. Well, cram schools really make money. I'm going back first. Just be prepared. You don't have to worry about anything else. I'll arrange the script for you. If Gu Dongsheng is confirmed, he will definitely be filming the first episode. He doesn't necessarily know what's good, but he knows where his performance is definitely not good. Able to correct in time. When he returned to his residence, Lu Hao was alone in the living room, cleaning his fishing gear. Li Yuan felt that Lu Hao had tanned at least 10 degrees during this period. He asked, "Mouse, how do you feel? Can you still hold on?" "No problem, I like fishing." "That's fine. If you stick to it for another 2 months, you can relax a little. During this period, you need to increase your traffic and first establish your position as the #1 fishing brother." Lu Hao's fishing videos are the most popular right now, but he still doesn't have the largest number of fans. There are two more with more than 1.5 million fans. Lu Hao suddenly said, "Brother Yuan, I am not a fishing master. I have never participated in any serious competition. I have never judged anything. Isn't this not good?" "Huh? Why do you suddenly have such an idea?" "I am." "Did you read the comments section?" Li Yuan felt that Lu Hao's mentality had changed. In fact, the comment area under Lu Hao's video can be said to be full of chaos. After all, he is so popular now, so many people must be unconvinced. "You have no name, how can you be so awesome? Are you a national special fishing master? Are you the national fishing instructor? Do you have any standing in the fishing world? Even if you become famous, we will not recognize your strength." Anyway, there are a lot of rhythmic comments in the comments section. Jushin Media also has insufficient manpower, so it is impossible to keep an eye on every comment. Besides, deleting comments is not a good thing. Lu Hao nodded, looking aggrieved. He was just fishing, but he didn't expect that overwhelming numbers of people were scolding him. "Don't read it anymore. You can't tell whether the people who post those contents on the internet are humans or dogs. Are you going to get angry with them?" "But some of my friends also saw my videos, and then those people asked him to borrow money at first, but where did he have the money? This month's salary hasn't been paid yet. I can make a little money from fishing, but I can't even make any money for food or anything else. So I didn't borrow it." Then those people said that he is an internet celebrity with hundreds of thousands or millions of fans, but he has no money. Slowly, those people lost their patience and began to criticize and insult him in various ways. What do you care about people like that? They don't even have the most basic position. Are they qualified to be your friend? Listen to me, in 2 years at most, I guarantee that you will be proud of yourself. Anyone who dares to say anything critical of you in front of you will be directly slapped. Slap it over." At this time, Zhou Ranran also walked out of the room. She said, "Mouse, don't take those people seriously. Who said anything about you? Just tell me and I will go back and teach them a lesson in a while." "Li Yuan, you really know how to do it? If you beat someone while pregnant, you won't go to jail, right?" No matter how Li Yuan tried to persuade him before, Lu Hao seemed to still have a grudge in his heart. But when Zhou Ranran said this, Lu Hao panicked. It's okay, Sister Ran, don't be angry, I will block and delete those guys right away." He couldn't let Zhou Ranran stand up for him. "I already helped a lot when I was a kid. If Zhou Ranran is brought in again, how will he explain it?" "Oh." Zhou Ranran turned around and returned to the bedroom. Li Yuan smiled and patted Lu Hao on the shoulder, and said, "Don't let the words of irrelevant people affect you. Your career has just started. It's better to cut off those messy things, so as not to be criticized by them when you become successful in the future." Disgusting. What a bullshit title. It's of no use. You don't expect the title to support you in your retirement. When you reach 20 million followers, I'll find you some heavyweight guests to ensure that your status is higher than any title. 100 times. Okay. The matter was temporarily resolved like this. Li Yuan feels that the company needs to hire a group of people who specialize in controlling reviews. Seeing Lu Hao go into the house, Li Yuan quietly came to the door of Zhou Ranran's room and knocked on the door. Zhou Ranran thought it was Lu Hao at first. When I opened the door, I realized it was Li Yuan. Then, there was some wrestling. However, when Li Yuan leaned on the crack of the door and said, "Sister Ran, you don't want the mouse to hear the noise, right?" Then, Zhou Ranran compromised. Let Li Yuan push the door open and come in, then close the door again. Zhou Ranran lowered her voice and asked, "What do you want to do?" "Let's chat with Sister Ran. I know you were angry just now. Even for the sake of the child in your belly, you should be less angry and less impulsive in the future. What does it have to do with you? Of course it has something to do with me. Joe Ran panicked. Li Yuan said calmly, because Sister Ran is pregnant, I have been left out for half a month. Aren't Sister Ran going to reward me? Get out. Immediately. Immediately. After Li Yuan heard this, he got up immediately and said, okay, I understand. I'll tell Mouse to be careful at home in the future and don't hit Sister Ran. You are seeking death. Li Yuan didn't listen, opened the door and was about to walk out. Then Joe Ran became anxious. You come back. Turn around. Sit on the bed. Forget it, just lie down. Sister Ran, you look great when you lift your hair, hat. Don't give me any trouble, do you hear me? Gilug, gilug. Li Yuan felt that Joe Ran was determined to have a child, and it was a perfect fit for him. After all, he doesn't know who he can marry in his life. Maybe he could have found true love, but because his identity has changed, true love will not be so pure. The best thing to do is not to get married. Having a baby with someone else is a lot of trouble, and it's not as comfortable as it is now. Career and love are inherently difficult to complement each other, except in that aspect. Early the next morning, he drove Joe Ran to the driving school. After all, it's cool in the morning so I can practice driving. If I go to the hospital for a checkup after 10:30, the results will be available in the afternoon. In the 13 Tebeo group, from last night to early this morning, no one stopped chatting. A group of old men stayed up all night. Will all the money in our account arrive today? It should be so, the boss said it yesterday. How much is expected to be received? How much do you want to pay? Lao 12's price premium is so high, we can't afford it, right? Even if there's some agreement, a 50% premium isn't too much, right? This is everyone's common goal. They have more than 700 million positions here. Even if the premium is 50%, they can make a huge profit of more than 300 million. Adding in the 400 million earned by Zhang Yuanqiao, that's a total of 700 million. It is also very consistent with the profit situation of these trading times, which is basically more than 70 points each time. It was only 1 or 2 billion before, but this time it was more than 1 billion. There is no doubt that everyone is dreaming of getting their money back. Ho Zhenqiu said, don't think so much, it will be good if we can get our capital back. Funds of more than 1 billion are completely different from 1 or 2 billion, and the difficulty of trading is several times greater. I guess the boss has given up today profit, otherwise Lao 12 wouldn't have made a huge profit of 400 million. Yes, it's very powerful to be able to make back your investment, and you can even accept a slight loss. If you can earn 400 million from 1 billion in half a month, not many people in the world can do it. Old 12, have you withdrawn the money from your side? The boss has taken care of it. We will transfer the money as soon as possible. Zhang Yuanqiao quickly replied, it's not done yet. They gave me 5 million in one day. I called the bank, and the bank asked me to find a securities company. I called the securities company again, and the securities company asked me to find a bank. What kind of rubbish brokerage? Needless to say, it must have been done by a small brokerage, so there is no restriction on my transfer. Zhang Yuanqiao, this is a dog compared to a securities firm. If you use it in the future, it will be a dog. It's such a mess after you return the financing. Who the hell will use them in the future? If it doesn't work, I'll talk to the boss and ask him to wait for a day. There will be no restrictions on my transfer. Wait a minute, I'll have a talk with the brokerage. Some small brokerages offer good conditions, but they also have many restrictions. For example, a single transfer cannot exceed 5 million, and a maximum of 2 transfers per day are allowed. The other people's accounts have not been traded yet, so they cannot transfer out today. About half an hour later, Zhang Yuanqiao started talking in the group again. Okay, this stupid broker finally transferred 100 million to me. 100 million should be enough, right? Well, that's definitely enough. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. They posted it upside down, and I'm actually not satisfied with it. Author, Lao He. Chapter 99. Li Yuan came to the headquarters of Tianfu Capital for the first time. The entire 6th floor of Hongyuan building is their territory. Li Yuan was a little moved when he saw the name of this building. Those who are involved in finance are very concerned about these connotations. The 8th floor is the famous Shangyuan capital. After such a comparison, Li Yuan felt that the names of these people were really amazing. Shangyuan, Shangyuanzi. Yuanzi is money on the internet. Grass. Do you also want to give your company a good name? W. 3 days without slipping away? Represents 1 trillion? No matter what, it feels like it's a bit lacking in flavor. They have both modern connotations and classical charms, and the names I thought of are a bit unconventional. Forget it, it's still early anyway. He hasn't taken the exam yet, and he hasn't hired anyone yet. The qualification review will take several months anyway. Shen Tianfu had prepared everything a long time ago, and when Li Yuan came over, the two parties began to sign frantically. The staff next to them are responsible for financial docking. An hour and a half later, the two sat down to drink tea and wait for the final data. Shen Tianfu was very curious about Li Yuan. It would be too outrageous to say that this young man was just an intermediary. With the ability he showed, he was willing to be an intermediary? What if it's not an intermediary? That would be even more outrageous. That means he is in charge of this matter, and he will definitely take most of all the profits this time. 3.5 billion. How many can he eat? After excluding their costs of more than 1 billion, the net profit is more than 2 billion. Shen Tianfu asked, Li Yuan, we are now considered business partners. Can you tell me what you do? As a self-media person, Mr. Shen should have found my company, right? Shen Tianfu didn't know what to say. Li Yuan's Jushin Media, which can definitely be found, is just a small studio and cannot be put on the stage at all. Even if there is great potential in the future, it is not in line with what Li Yuan is doing now. They are now investigating the identities of Zhang Yuanqiao and Ho Zhenqiao, and the results should be available within the next 2 days. With all due respect, Jushin Media is not worthy of your status. Li Yuan smiled and said, I really don't have any identity. I used to have a student identity, but now it's basically gone. Oh? What do you say? You're fired. Haha, what's the point? For ordinary people, studying is the best way out, but for you, studying will become a burden. This time you are trading Tiankai shares, it can be said that everyone is I've been fooled. I'd like to see that expert's technique, can you recommend him if you have time? This, probably won't work. I'm just a small intermediary. All I earn is my hard-earned money. I'm not qualified to participate in big decisions. It is impossible for Li Yuan to take the blame for this matter, even if he is the one who benefits the most. Otherwise, if Wu Tiankai and Shen Tianfu found out, they wouldn't be able to find someone to kill them? Everything was done by those retired old men. They were evil-minded, unkind, and cold-blooded killers. Okay, then come to Tianfu Capital often from now on. You are still young, and my daughter is about the same age as you. I believe there will be a lot of common topics between you. Anna Shen, I'm an old acquaintance. However, he can guarantee that he will never ask for excessive prices because of Anna Shen. Life is life, Work is work, he distinguishes it very clearly. After the final process was completed, Li Yuan left. Shen Tianfu sent Li Yuan downstairs, his heart still bleeding. In this matter, he had an explanation for the time being, but it was not considered a success at all. Before things started to work, more than 1 billion profits were forcibly taken away. The share price of Tiankai shares doubled, which was the only way for him to recover his capital. Who knows how long it will take to do that? After half a year of planning, someone picked the peaches in just a few days. It was slightly better than Wu Tiankai, who had his pants ripped off. Lao Wu, my securities account suddenly received 180 million. I received 150 million. I received 200 million. The 13 Taibao began to tell their own situations in the group. After Ho Zhenqiu saw it, he said, I also received 160 million here. Everyone come out and send screenshots of their accounts, and I will see how much the total is. Not everyone is online, there is always someone busy with their own business. Soon, people began to post screenshots one after another. Basically, they were more than 150 million, and the most were more than 200 million. I just saw the screenshots of 8 people, and everyone is not calm. This money is our stock. Didn't you say yesterday that Lao 12 side is the big one? How come there are more of us than Lao 12 side? There are currently 8 people counted, and the money in their accounts has exceeded 1.4 billion. Including yesterday's more than 600 million, the total is 2 billion? Hurry up and call a few other people and ask them to send screenshots. For the first time, Ho Zhenqiu felt that there was too much money. From the current point of view, after excluding costs, they have made a net profit of more than 1 billion, and they must give Li Yuan at least 200 million. There are still 4 people whose accounts I haven't seen yet. If according to the current situation, each account has no less than 150 million, that means there are still more than 600 million. So at least more than 300 million funds must be prepared to hand over to Li Yuan? Zhang Yuanqiao had withdrawn 100 million before and thought it would be enough. But now it seems that a few more days may not be enough. This is a bad broker, I'm going to scold them again. The group has entered the stage of collecting money. Because until now, Li Yuan has not spoken. It was clear that he was waiting for their performance. At the same time, Ho Zhenqiu once again gathered a small group. Unlike last time, this time it was about discussing the future. Lao Wu, why are you trying to win over others? Of course we guys should discuss how to keep the boss here. What do you mean? Isn't the boss still there? Didn't you see that after what the boss said yesterday, he didn't say a word today? And according to the news I got, the boss is planning to do a public fundraiser, and Lao 12 also knows about it. What? Do a public fundraiser? Do a shitty public fundraiser. How much money can you make from the public fundraiser? That's right, this time the big boss can earn at least 300 million, and doing public fundraising will not count the operating costs. He will have to absorb at least 15 billion in funds, and he can earn 300 million in management fees a year. What did he think? Is it necessary to have trouble with money? Everyone thinks that doing public fundraising is a stupid decision. Isn't it great to continue to make money with them and earn 400 million in just over a month? Even if you take a break, you can still make 1 billion a year. If you have the ability, do you want to do public fundraising? Various restrictions on public offerings are destined to be impossible to function as they are now. If you want to make 1 billion in public fundraising, you need at least 70 billion or more funds. How many people in the world can do this? Those public offerings have been developed for many years, and it is likely that billions of dollars have been spent on various marketing expenses to reach the current scale. Ho Zhenqiu said helplessly, they are determined to do public fundraising, but no matter how hard they persuade them, it's useless. So I thought of asking everyone if they have any ideas and suggestions. Have you met the boss? How old is he? Must be in your 20s. What? Only in your 20s. Zhang Yuanqiao also said, he is indeed very young, but he is a very independent young man. Lao Wu and I tried to persuade him for a long time, but it was of no use. Do you think there is any way to make him change his mind? Public fundraising is definitely a dead end. Soon, the group began to think of various solutions. What about increasing the dividend ratio, giving him more cars and houses, etc.? But in the end, someone said, young man, who is rich and capable, introduce him to a girlfriend, Yuling from Lao 12's family. I don't believe any young man in the world can refuse. Make him our own people, no matter whether they do public fundraising or private equity in the future. Aren't we all close to the water? This sentence seemed to open the door to a new world for the people in the group. After all, they had never thought about this before. No serious person would think about this. Zhang Yuanqiao said, I can't be the master of Yuling's affairs. He had always felt that he owed Zhang Yuling, and now rashly intervening in Zhang Yuling's marriage would only make Zhang Yuling farther and farther away from him. He would definitely not be willing to abandon family ties for money. However, Ho Zhenqiu said, who let you make the decision? You only need to be responsible for the introduction. There is no reason for Yuling to look down on such an outstanding person like him. Have you already had this idea? Zhang Yuanqiao felt that Ho Zhenqiu might have had this idea the first time he met Li Yuan, but he was too embarrassed to say it. Otherwise, if this topic was brought up today, he would not be able to answer it so quickly. No, the main reason is that Yuling is really suitable. Not to mention what his ability can bring to us. We have recovered our capital this time, and we are not so short of money. Just based on his personal ability, I feel that at a young age it's hard to find a second one among people. How many more years do you have to live? It's time for you to think about Yuling's future. These words silenced Zhang Yuanqiao. There are only 2 people left in their family. If he leaves, Zhang Yuling will be alone. What use will the money left to her be? If you can't find the right person or a reliable family to rely on, you will only attract a lot of flies around you. But he already has a girl with him. Zhang Yuanqiao met Zhou Ranran, and it was obvious that she was a girl who had a close relationship with Li Yuan. Ho Zhenqiu said, I have asked those people a long time ago. That Zhou Ranran is just his childhood friend, and his background is very poor. He just came out of prison. Do you think it is possible for the 2 of them? Zhang Yuanqiao. You still said you have no ideas. If you don't have this idea, how about asking about it? These old guys started plotting against his granddaughter. I now understand that if he does public offering and also invests, even if the profit is only a dozen points a year, it will be better than our own trading. Public offerings are so boring. Our purpose in stock trading is to make money. Even if the risk is a little higher, we can accept it. Now each company is not short of 30 to 50 million, but short of 3 to 5 billion. After all, times have changed, and money is important in this era. 13pic did not trade in stocks before, but the situation has changed rapidly in recent years. The position that I thought was very important in the past is now almost transparent, and my power is being constrained more and more, and it is almost useless. Money is king. They basically all had big families and big businesses. In those days, it was normal to have 5 or 6 children, which meant 5 or 6 families. Even if you say you have no money, you are not poor. It is no problem to scrape together tens of millions or even 1 or 2 billion. If you have money, you won't be able to do many big things. In particular, projects that start at 3 to 5 billion yuan are the most profitable, but they can't afford it. If they can earn 3 to 5 billion, the entire family will benefit. Therefore, they have no interest at all in Li Yuan's public offering. They would rather lose tens of millions more to win a big one than waste time and money on the steady stream of public offering. Old 12, brothers, it's up to you. Let me find out first. Hospital. Li Yuan took Zhou Ran for examination. First find a doctor to make an order, and then go for a color ultrasound. After the color ultrasound is completed, you have to wait for an hour to get the results, and then the hospital will be closed. As planned, Li Yuan took Zhou Ran home for a meal and planned to go there in the afternoon. In fact, when Zhou Ran was doing the color ultrasound, she had already heard the doctor over there saying something. Basically cut off her last thoughts. Because the doctor said, the child is so old that he can see his face. After all the calculations, it had been less than a month since she and Li Yuan were together. She didn't expect the baby to be conceived so quickly. I really wanted to keep the child before, but later I calmed down and realized that the child would suffer even if he was with me. After all, my own experience is enough to narrow the path that my children can choose in the future. If there were no embryos yet, he had other options, but he couldn't bear to part with them now. While eating, she suddenly said, "The child is already very big, and I don't want to hit him." Li Yuan, don't you know that you have wanted to give birth to me for a long time? I'm just telling you, I won't hit you no matter what. But don't worry, I won't blackmail you. From now on, when the child is listed in my household registration book, I won't tell him who his father is. I won't ask you for a penny in the future. Then how do you raise a child? I have hands and feet, but I can't afford to raise a child. Although I can't find a good job, I saw that in many stores, people who recruit dishwashers can be paid more than 4,000. So don't worry, no, it will cause you trouble. Li Yuan asked what this meant. Wasn't he afraid that he would regret it in the future and ask him for alimony? There's no need for that. You lent me more than 60 million before. I'll pay you back in a few months. That's your money, I don't want it. As soon as he finished speaking, Zhou Ran received a message on his phone. She thought it was from the hospital. When she picked it up and looked at it, she didn't recover for a long time. 100 million. Didn't you say you wouldn't do that kind of work again? Why did I receive another 100 million? It's only 100 million? Shouldn't it be more than 300 million? Zhou Ran didn't eat anymore, and she was extremely flustered at this moment. Tell me, what on earth did you do? The last time was less than 20 days ago, how could you earn more than 300 million? Apart from that taboo industry, Zhou Ran really can't think of anything else. And that kind of industry is dead if you touch it. Just because Li Yuan can get so much money, it's not enough to eat 100 peanuts. What kind of evil did the child in his belly do to meet a mother like himself and a father like Li Yuan? No, I have to leave now, as far away from you as possible. The child has nothing to do with you. You are not allowed to talk about the child in the future. If you dare to harm the child, I will fight you to the death. For the first time, Zhou Ran felt that he was a good person. They posted it upside down, and I'm actually not satisfied with it. Author, Lao He. Chapter 100. Are you selling drugs? That's how much money you can make. Zhou Ran got such a reply from Li Yuan. Then, Li Yuan continued, Sister Ran, the most profitable thing in this world is always gambling. What bet? Bet that stocks will rise tomorrow, bet on tomorrow's food, oil prices will fluctuate, and bet on rivals in the exchange rate market. You can bet on anything, and what I do is make money amidst the fluctuations. To give a simple example, I bought 10,000 kilograms of cucumbers at a purchase price of 80 cents per kilogram, and spent a total of 8,000 yuan. But the next day the price rose to 1 yuan a kilogram, and I could earn 2,000 yuan from selling them. You deserve it, after all you have to bear the loss and even the price drop. Yeah, that's it. Then how did you make so much money? Sister Ran, can you please stop asking about things beyond your knowledge base? Oh. The longer I stay with Li Yuan, the more I realize that the gap between their thinking is insurmountable. Everything about Zhou Ran stayed 3 years ago. Even though there was a TV in the prison and she could watch some programs, she had no intention of absorbing knowledge. Psychologically, she is actually just a child. Sometimes she couldn't understand some of the popular words Li Yuan said. On the contrary, Lu Hao was able to communicate without any barriers. On the way to the hospital, Li Yuan noticed that Zhou Ran was inexplicably depressed. This is not like her character. So, after getting the examination report, he looked at the 6 weeks of pregnancy on it and immediately asked, "Sister Ran? Is this wrong? We have only been together for a little more than 4 weeks, and you are already 6 weeks pregnant." When Zhou Ran heard this, her expression changed. "What do you mean?" Li Yuan said nonchalantly, "It's not interesting. I'm quite happy that Sister Ran has another boyfriend. At least someone can take care of you in the future." Zhou Ran almost started a big fight. "I don't." After saying that, he snatched the examination report and went to find the doctor. She felt there must be something wrong. Damn it, Li Yuan actually doubted her. Li Yuan smiled as he watched Zhou Ran walk into the consultation room. About 5 or 6 minutes later, she walked out of it triumphantly. He pushed the examination report into Li Yuan's hand and said, "Let me tell you, the hospital examination results are calculated from the end of the last menstrual period. Do you understand now? You are still a college student, and you don't even have this common sense. Have no idea." Li Yuan clearly saw a bit of arrogance in Zhou Ran's expression. "In fact, didn't you understand just now? Really? There is such a weird calculation method, let me check it out." "Check it, check it?" The more Li Yuan wants to investigate, the happier Zhou Ran becomes. Finally, there is something this guy doesn't know about. Otherwise, when I'm around him, I always feel like I'm a retard and can't find a common topic. After a while, Li Yuan said awkwardly, "Okay, I have learned a lot this time. Next time Sister Ran gets pregnant again, I will know how to calculate the days." "Huh? What did you say?" "Nothing, I'm going to get some medicine first." After the examination, there was no problem, but pregnant women should supplement some folic acid appropriately. Li Yuan went to the pharmacy to buy some. An hour later, Li Yuan sent Zhou Ran to the driving school, and he returned to his residence and began to calculate his own funds. He had already seen in the group the reason why he was only given 100 million. The money from 13 Taibao had to be transferred to the bank card tomorrow, while Zhang Yuan Qiao's junk broker gave him a limit. The 100 million was spent in a long time. "I got it just by talking. The remaining 220 million will be transferred as soon as possible tomorrow." After his previous successful transaction with Wu Tiankai, he received more than 700 million in funds. After repaying the 120 million in financing, 644 million was left. This money is basically his, but in name he still owes Zhou Ran 62 million, and Lu Hao more than 20 million. For Zhongchen Electronics, he also invested 30 million yuan. After more than half a month, it was already worth more than 70 million yuan, and in another week he would receive almost 90 million yuan. Small account 860,000. If all the 320 million from 13 Taibao are received tomorrow, the total funds he can mobilize will exceed 1 billion. This is a lot of money. It's basically the wealth ceiling for ordinary people. No matter converted into any currency, you can be called a rich man. But if you want to do public fundraising, it's still a little bit off. But you can already start preparing. At 5 o'clock that afternoon, he handed the script roll arranged for Gu Dongsheng to Song Jiajia. Let her be responsible for recruiting photographers and collecting relevant information at the same time to cooperate with Gu Dongshen's plot shooting. After Gu Dongshen came over, the two parties signed a contract. It will take about 3 days to prepare for shooting. At the same time, Li Yuan contacted a headhunting company. The requirements were very simple, that is, relevant technical personnel who had served as management in a fund company, including a general manager and a fund manager. The rest of the traders, researchers, and analysts can be recruited from the market. If management is difficult to find in the market, headhunting companies must be hired to find them, or they must rely on their strong connections to find them alone. A woman in her 30s looked at the requests made by Li Yuan, frowned and said, "Mr. Li, your salary seems a little lower than in the same industry. The general manager of a fund company has an annual salary of only 1.6 million, and the fund manager is even less, only 900,000, without performance sharing." Li Yuan said with a smile, "It is easy to recruit under such conditions. There is no pressure from competition." To put it bluntly, what Li Yuan is looking for is the kind of management that can do the job but is not very capable. As long as this kind of management can do what they ask it to do well, it is already very good. There is no need to pay too much to the headhunting company. If you are looking for someone who is particularly powerful, the headhunting company will ask for a very high price, which can range from millions to tens of millions. If the expert changes jobs, there will be a non-compete agreement, compensation, and a lot of trouble. The lady from the headhunting company smiled awkwardly. "Your focus is really special. No one is looking for garbage. A good intermediary fee is probably not collected." After all, Li Yuan's request can be said to have no threshold. Anyone with any ambition would not come to this kind of company. Come to hang out? It's been a long time since I've opened an order in a headhunting company, but I encountered this on my first order. If it weren't for her professionalism, she would have just left. This order adds up to 8,000 yuan. For Li Yuan, there is no need to have such a high configuration in the early stage. He can definitely do it by himself. When the funds under management exceed 10 billion and I am really too busy, I will ask some experts to help me. He really doesn't want to save on introduction fees. As for saving those millions. When I went to pick up Zhou Ranran in the evening, Zhou Ranran regained his previous vitality. Can Li Yuan not know what the numbers written on the inspection report mean? Even if he didn't know before, he had already started studying after realizing that Zhou Ranran might be pregnant. It's just that Zhou Ranran's mind has given up on learning, so he doesn't understand what happens in advance. When you don't subconsciously search for the answer to a question but feel that it doesn't matter whether you know it or not, it means that the whole person has lost the mentality of learning. Passively acquired knowledge will always be fleeting. Unless you are passive every day and form thinking and memory. Just like people eat every day, you can tell whether something tastes good or not by just taking one bite. But you don't need to be exposed to electricity every day. It's around 8 o'clock in the evening. Zhang Yuanqiao had dinner with Zhang Yuling at home for the first time in a while. What made him most happy was that Zhang Yuling also moved his daily necessities back, saying that he would live here for a while during the summer vacation. After dinner, sitting on the sofa, Zhang Yuanqiao had a smile on his face. Looking at Zhang Yuling, who was eating fruit at the side, he asked, "Yuling, have you been speculating in stocks again recently?" "Well, I'm still playing. I made a little money at first, but I lost money recently. Would you like me to give you some more? I also made a fortune recently." Zhang Yuling became interested. She didn't dare tell others that she had been losing money in the stock market. As a graduate student majoring in finance, it's really embarrassing to tell this. Before copying other people's homework, she really had never made any money for a day. She was very evil. She had obviously learned a lot, but she reasoned according to some logic in the textbook, but the result was wrong every time. My grandfather can actually make money in the stock market? How much did you make? Zhang Yuanqiao stretched out 4 fingers. 30,000. No, no, your capital is relatively large. Is it 300,000 or 3 million? She thinks this is a normal figure. All the money in the family is in the hands of her grandfather. He has spent tens of millions. With good luck, it should not be difficult to earn several million. Zhang Yuanqiao said with a smile, 300 million. In the past month, he earned almost 400 million. Excluding the more than 80 million given to Li Yuan, plus sharing the money for the villa with Ho Zhenqiu, it was equivalent to more than 310 million. This is also the most profitable among the 13 Taibao. After all, he was willing to spend money and raise 200 million in funds from the beginning. When Zhang Yuling heard this, his originally calm expression changed. This is simply. Grandpa, how did you earn it? This is even more shocking than waking up to find the world is ending. Zhang Yuanqiao said with a smile, the main reason is that I followed a very powerful person, and he brought me the money I earned. Originally, the money I earned was reserved for you as a dowry. Just tell me when you want it. Ah. Why would such a powerful person lead you to trade stocks? Don't they make money themselves? So he is an expert, but we also invited him to dinner. Zhang Yuanqiao did not tell Li Yuan that he wanted to charge money. After all, telling such things would affect Li Yuan's image. Zhang Yuling still couldn't believe it. Just treat someone to a meal and they will help you earn 300 million. Yeah, you don't believe it? I don't believe it. Unless you show me your account. Okay. Zhang Yuanqiao took out his account and handed it to Zhang Yuling. Then, Zhang Yuling saw more than 500 million in the account. Zhang Yuanqiao explained from the side, there is still more than 100 million in financing that has not been repaid, and I still owe some to others. I estimate that there will be 350 million left in the end. The premium for buying Tiankai shares this time is basically the same, so how much money comes into each person's account belongs to them. He just needs to pay out more than 10 million later. Zhang Yuling looked through the delivery records again and again. Then the more I looked at it, the more frightened I became. Especially the huge sales order of Tiankai shares, more than 600 million. Grandpa, Tiankai shares only have 3 daily trading limits. How do you make so much? It shows a profit of 168%. The cost of more than 200 million has turned into 600 million. This is a capital method. The person who led us to trade stocks is very powerful. We lost money at the beginning, and Tiankai shares were still suspended. Calculated based on the suspension price, I still lost nearly 10 points. But those stocks, it was given other meanings, and someone was willing to pay 600 million to buy it, so I made a profit. Zhang Yuling found the homepage of Tiankai shares and saw their latest announcement. The company has a major incident and is waiting for resumption of trading. Either the company has major decisions being implemented that affect the basic logic of the entire market, so trading will be suspended. Or the company is undergoing structural reorganization. The sudden increase in the value of Tiankai's shares can only be the latter. It's really amazing. Even if I knew the news, I couldn't make the stocks I bought valuable. This is an operation between capitals. Even if she has hundreds of millions, it will be difficult for her to participate. Zhang Yuanqiao said, not only does he know how to trade online, but he also controls offline capital. It is said that the highest premium for those who participated in the board of directors that day was only 50%, and he got 180% of the premium. They are also chips. He can get such a high price, it can't be because someone else is stupid, right? Zhang Yuling nodded. He must have grasped the situation just right and turned the bargaining chip in his hand into an indispensable thing. Otherwise, no one would be willing to pay such a high premium. It would be nice to not bargain for a normal large transaction. Grandpa, please introduce him to me. I also want to learn stock trading from him. I can become my teacher. Zhang Yuling really wanted to get to know such a master. Do you really want to meet me? Yes. It's actually quite appropriate. What's appropriate? He is also very young, only in his 20s. No. Are you already such a monster in your 20s? Zhang Yuanqiao did not directly tell Li Yuan's identity because Li Yuan had scolded Zhang Yuling. He had already found out about that matter. The fault must be Zhang Yuling's, but he couldn't say. Who told her that this was her granddaughter? Yes, he is just like you. He likes to play that short video and has hundreds of thousands of fans. Ah. What does he do? It's almost the same as you, it's also a real offer. Zhang Yuling. Those who share real offers usually don't have many fans. Tens of thousands of fans is already pretty impressive. But there is one exception. Grandpa, could it be the one who took the long voyage on the stock? Zhang Yuanqiao said in surprise, what? Do you know him? As soon as he said this, Zhang Yuling felt aggrieved. Yeah, I just copied his homework and made some money, but it turns out that he has been very cheating recently, exchanging shares every day and not updating the video in advance, and losing money every time I copied. I didn't expect that he would lead you to trade stocks in private. Haha, he has so many fans, so recommending stocks is bound to cause problems. How about I invite him to dinner tomorrow? Do you want to go with me? Huh? Okay. Zhang Yuling immediately agreed. She is going to give the master a surprise as the chief helmsman.